everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 177 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. We're here to give you the biggest and the brightest in video games for the week. I'm Shane Satterfield.
I'm Matt Kyle.
And you can find us on Twitter. I'm Dinfire, and Matt is M. Kyle. Some updates before
Very creative.
Yeah. Some updates before we get into the show proper. I talked to you guys a few weeks ago about how we're making some updates to sifted.net. Those are underway. Brent is working on that stuff right now. A lot of the early stuff that you're going to get from those updates, you're not going to see. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background for the site as well during these updates. A lot of you may not realize it, but other people do, that there's some questionable talking between Patreon and Sifted right now. We're getting that stuff sorted out. The short of it is that some people have been watching our content for free for a while, and the gravy train is about to end, folks. So if you're one of those people who's been watching our content for free for a while, that's going to end. You're going to have to go to Patreon. You're going to have to pluck down your $4 a month to keep watching our stuff. That's getting fixed. There's a bunch of other things going on. Probably the visible stuff you're not going to see for a few weeks still. But I will say this, I'm pleasantly surprised by how much we're going to be able to get done to the site within our budget. So some big stuff's going to be coming, but you guys aren't going to see it for a little bit. Another note, I'm sure if you haven't been living under a rock, everybody knows it's fantasy football season right now because it is everywhere. I've never seen fantasy football promoted like this across like everything. It's nuts. But we are approaching the deadline for our fantasy football league. Now, this is not our video game fantasy league. This is a real fantasy football league. So we're approaching the deadline. We've had a couple people reach out, but this is kind of your last chance to reach out to me if you want to be a part of it. Again, you can get at me with a DM on Twitter. You can direct message me on Sifted at Shane. But just get in touch with me, and we'll try to get you guys into the league. We already have 12. It doesn't look like a lot of people are going to drop out, so we're thinking about maybe going to a 14-team league, which I'm not a huge fan of. At that point, you're like trying to find like third-string running backs to start and things like that. So I'd like to avoid that. Also, if you're in the league, let me know if you're going to be out. I sent out a league-wide email. I haven't really heard back from most people, so let me know if you're not going to be in our fantasy football league this year, because there are people who are asking and want to get in. And before we get on with the show, it's time for a word from our sponsor. Feeling the urge to get away from it all? Permanently or for months at a time? Immerse yourself in the best Montana has to offer on 320 acres of remote, heavily forested property. Gaze at your own private lake from the deck of the log cabin. Truly off the grid, soak in a custom wood fire-heated hot tub surrounded by wilderness and wildlife. Visit www.lostlakemontana.com for more detailed information and images. You can also contact Doug DeShazer today at deshazermt@gmail.com or 406-291-1643. That's deshazermt@gmail.com or 406-291-1643. I'll tell you what, after the last couple weeks, I might need to buy that property in Montana. It's been crazy, man. It has been nuts. Like trying to get into the swing with the new studio and getting all the shows rolling and working with Brent, and we're doing a bunch of stuff for games. It's been nuts. I could definitely use a week or two in Montana on a lake in a cabin. So hit up the Shazer Ryan Realty if you're feeling like me and you feel like you need to get away a little bit. I just saw in the chat, Matt, that someone said that Loot Crate just went bankrupt.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't know about that.
I didn't know about that either, but it does make sense now because we did not get our Loot Crate for this month's giveaway. And I was out almost to the point where I was going to reach out to our rep and be like, hey, we haven't got our crate yet. Now it makes sense. The good news is we do have 2 more crates to give away that are like backloaded, so we're still going to give those away. And if this does turn out to be true, someone asked a question like, are we going to replace the tier on our Patreon? We absolutely will. We'll find some other thing of equal value that we can give you guys every month that you guys can sign up for at that tier. Yeah, I haven't seen a store. I didn't see anything on this on Sifted either.
Yeah, so I didn't see anything like that.
Maybe it's just breaking, but that's a shame. I'm surprised that they couldn't sustain.
I mean, I don't know how well that business model is really rolling these days. It was a big deal for a while, but like I think certainly everyone I know who was into that stuff has sort of canceled their subscriptions just on the basis of like I have too many Funko Pops that I don't care about and I don't know what to do with all this. Because really, like Loot Crates were like tended to be one thing you want and a bunch of stuff you throw out.
That's true.
So,
yeah. I mean, no, I think lately probably at least 2 good things, and then the rest are like little.
like I've never really gotten any of it. I've gotten 2 loot crates in my entire life, and it was the Mass Effect one and the Fallout one. And those did indeed have a bunch of stuff I kept, including that Mass Effect hoodie I wear all the time.
Yeah. I mean, every crate has at least 2 really cool things in it. And then you're right, the rest, your mileage will vary based upon what you're interested in or whatever. And I could see where if someone subscribed to Loot Crate, after a year, you're like, holy crap, look at all this stuff I have. What am I going to do with it all? And probably start getting rid of it or giving it away. It works good for this purpose because people are just getting that one Loot Crate that we send to them. And like I said, there's like always 2 really awesome things in each one of them. But I could see where if you were a subscriber and therefore the business model would fail if people don't subscribe, I could see where you might burn out on that stuff. And then I think they also just kind of worked themselves a little too thin. It's like they had separate crates for like everything.
Yeah, they spread it out a lot. Also, I think you're in a period like almost everyone I know is going through that Marie Kondo like decluttering phase right now. Actually,
we're doing that at my place.
Yeah, I think it's a bad time to be selling like useless crap.
Yeah, you may be right. I mean, honestly,
unless you can eat it.
That's because I actually got like a couple of the loot crates before the program started. And so the stuff was old by the time we started it on our Patreon, so I just kept them, and like I never opened them, and like I looked at them, and and you're right, like I ended up seeing like 3 things in the 2 crates that I was like, this is kind of worth keeping. The one thing I do like about Loot Crate though is that it gives you domestic items that you can actually use, and that's the stuff that I like.
Yeah, like I've kept like the glasses and like the shot glass. I think there were Mass Effect shot glasses in that crate and stuff like that.
This stuff, like these coasters that we have here, these Mario coasters.
Yeah.
I got these from Loot Crate. Like, this stuff is actually, like, functional.
Yeah, like my normal set of coasters are the Fallout ones that came in that crate.
Yeah.
Like,
and stuff like that.
For me, it's like the little, like, weird Funko things or, like, the keychain of something. Yeah, it's like okay, you're putting extra little things to make it feel like there's more stuff in it, but really you're just there for those, like the mug and the shirt and whatever, and like, you know, the big stuff.
Yep. But anyway, we do have 2 more crates to give away. We'll probably be doing that in the next week. Rest in peace, Loot Crate. That's kind of sad. I hope it's not true, but if it is, it was a great idea. But I think like a lot of businesses...
Yeah, Danboy90 says they're shipping the remaining boxes, but they're done.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I just think they spread themselves too thin. It got to a point where they had so many different subscription options that...
Meanwhile, there's a $400 collector's edition of Destroy All Humans remastered, and I'm just like, really?
Who's going to buy that? Who would buy that?
Ian McGar is going to buy it.
Oh, really?
I saw in the comments on the story. But
is he like a special fan of the game or something?
He loves it, I guess. I mean, I know there's fans of that game out there. I just... $400. I mean, I could maybe kind of see $400 for a new one, but a remaster is kind of like, well, I mean, I don't know. I guess on the flip side, at least you know how much you like it.
That's true.
It makes more sense than like the $400 special editions of like new games where you're like with Darksiders Genesis. I'm like, so you want me to pay like $400 for a statue of a character I don't know if I like yet?
That's a good point, actually.
At least you know if you like crypto or not.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. So. If it's true, rest in peace, Loot Crate. And like I said, we will find something else for that tier on our Patreon to make sure we're giving something really cool to folks at least once a month. And with that, let's get on with the show. I saw some comments in the chat before we got started. People were like, okay, what are going to be the topics for high-low today? How are they going to fill out a show this week? And I hear you. It has been a really, really slow week in video games.
We would have talked about Rebel Galaxy Outlaw if they'd gone live last night.
Yeah.
But they didn't because they went live at 9 a.m. Pacific this morning.
Yep.
PC games, get on the midnight launch train here, people. What's going on? I mean, I think, as I understand it, it sounds like on Twitter, I think the developer just didn't think they were going to be awake for a midnight launch.
Oh, they're going to be awake.
So, no, they literally were saying, like, Epic can be up at midnight, but I can't be up to make sure everything goes right. So we're just going to do it in the morning. So I guess they have a decent sleep schedule.
They must. No crunch there, apparently. Well, the good news is that Gamescom is coming up. And so, therefore, we're going to preview Gamescom for you guys today. In fact, we are going to blow it the heck out. We're going to give you every big potential story that could be coming from the show. And we're going to run down the biggest games that are going to be there, some of the big games we know a lot about, but maybe there's new information coming. by the time we finish this topic, you are going to be prepped and ready for Gamescom 2019. So let's get started. Probably the first thing that we should bring up is that, unlike any year prior, Jeff Keighley's doing a big Gamescom blowout before the show even starts.
Jeff Keighley, Euro trip with Jeff Keighley.
Yeah, that's a movie that needs to be made. So he is doing a big...
He doesn't do a ton of Europe stuff.
He doesn't. That's what I'm saying. This is like the first time he's done something like this. So his usual E3 shenanigans, which as you guys all know are usually amazing, and the Game Awards stuff, which is usually amazing, he's doing the same thing for a pre-Gamescom show. It's Monday, August 19th, and obviously the time's going to be different for all of you depending on where you're living. But... along with that, it has helped us prepare for this conversation about Gamescom because, as you know, he gives up his rundowns before the show happens, and a lot of times it hints at stuff to come. And so we've managed to kind of cross-reference information given to us by publishers so far with what's on his rundown to deliver what we think is a pretty reliable look at the new stuff or the new features that are going to be shown off at Gamescom. Let's start with undoubtedly the biggest game in the industry right now, undoubtedly the game that's going to win Best of Show at Gamescom 2019, and that is Cyberpunk 2077. What do you think they could show at this point that could make an impact? Do you think they have another cameo in their back pocket?
Maybe it's possible. I don't think anything with the impact of Keanu. I mean, what makes the most sense is probably to do what they did last year and release the demo, the behind closed doors demo they showed at E3.
I think that's probably most likely, yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if they really need to do more than that at this point. Like they've got the mind share, they've got the zeitgeist. They're people are talking about it left and right, both good and bad. It kind of dominates. Even Sessler, who runs that data company, is Spike Trap. They analyze all the social media chatter, and at the time of E3, he was like, the most talked about game in the world is Fortnite. Like Fortnite, it's always Fortnite. Everything else, you just see the shifting sands.
That is not a surprise to me at all.
Underneath Fortnite,
right?
But when Cyberpunk went live and the Keanu thing happened and all that, Cyberpunk was 4 times. I think it was 4 times as mentioned as Fortnite.
Wow!
For a few hours, like the only time that's ever
one
happened.
game broke through,
and it's that one. Like, to most people, that's a new IP.
Yeah.
It's not. It's a pen and paper RPG from the early '80s.
And now they're making another tabletop game based on it that isn't actually an RPG.
It's like a card game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's also been. Netrunner was a Fantasy Flight living card game that was very, very cyber. I mean, it's Cyberpunk is a genre pretty much now, and Cyberpunk itself has specific things to it, but it was sort of a very generic cyberpunk thing when you get down to it, because it was one of the earliest things to use that after Neuromancer, and sort of created the genre, and Blade Runner, and so it's like there's not a whole lot to the cyberpunk pen and paper RPG that I would say like really defines it outside of the specific names of things.
Right.
Although I do believe there's a whole system in it that where the more implants and cybernetic stuff you get, the more humanity you lose, and like that has been lifted by a bunch of stuff after like Shadowrun uses that, and Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf use that. So it was very influential. It just like in terms of gameplay systems, it just didn't. The setting is just sort of struggled to differentiate itself from work to work, basically. So I guess it's kind of working to its advantage in the sense that you look at this and you just see cyber. It's handy that when you look at this game, even if you don't know anything about it, the thing you think is the word its title is.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that looks really cyberpunk. Yes, it's Cyberpunk 2077. It's like it's super shorthand. It makes you feel smart, and then you're like, yeah, maybe I'll play that. It's like, wait, that's what it looks like. I just want to see what's down that hallway. Like that's I don't even care what this guy wants. I want to go down the hall.
But this game, I don't know that at this point they could do anything good or bad to change people's opinions on the game.
They could just come out on stage and kill a dog. That would probably change opinion.
I don't know.
But in terms of just
may not do anything.
In terms of your normal PR behavior, no, I think they're pretty golden on this.
But
as long as the release date holds.
Yeah, and my guess is that, and they're saying that they're working on multiplayer and it won't be ready for launch probably.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
That's
I
fine.
mean, this game is going to be so huge.
Yeah.
It's going to take you like a month and a half or 2 months to finish it. So
yeah, I don't need multiplayer at launch. For
yeah,
this.
and I think we learned with Red Dead that if you have a game that's that big,
right,
people are willing to kind of give you a little buffer zone there to get the
like you don't. I mean, I think the oh my god single player games don't sell paranoia. It should be well and gone at this point between Red Dead and God of War and Spider-Man and like I mean it's fine.
Yep,
it'll be fine. And The Witcher 3. I mean, The Witcher 3 is huge.
Yeah,
sold tons and tons.
Absolutely. So we expect the game will have a great showing. We also expect that the demo that was shown to the press at E3 2019 will be released for everyone to watch. That's kind of the
I would think so.
That's kind of the pattern that CD Projekt Red has followed with this game.
Will Keanu be back?
Doubtful.
Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, they got their money's worth out of him already.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's never going to top the breathtaking thing. So why try it again?
Yep.
But we'll see. I mean, I don't know who else I would bring on for. I mean,
I would have never guessed Keanu. So.
No, but in terms of like bringing, I mean, I don't know, Lawrence Fishburne,
like
another Matrix star. I'm trying to think because there's not a lot of cyberpunk movies or big cyberpunk properties out there. Like
no, not that the general public is aware of.
Not that any. I mean, cyberpunk as a rule does not succeed in mainstream.
That's true.
Like, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, look at you're right.
Blade Runner was a bomb.
Yeah, which was amazing. That movie is amazing.
Oh yeah. I mean, the guy William Gibson, who wrote Neuromancer, which basically created cyberpunk, saw Blade Runner when he was writing Neuromancer, and he's like, "Oh my God, that's my book. Like you made my book already." And he was like disappointed, but like he still finished it, and it turned out fine. It turned out fine. But like there's very little. Blade Runner 2049 bombed, even though it was fantastic.
That's what I'm saying. It was amazing.
It doesn't matter. I mean, and Ghost in the Shell was bad, but it also bombed. Cyberpunk's a hard sell in the mainstream market, and like this could be the first big cyberpunk media success since The Matrix at this point.
That's true.
It just doesn't really happen much.
And I think a lot of people wouldn't even view The Matrix as cyberpunk.
Oh, it definitely is.
It is, absolutely. Yeah. But I think most people never connected the dots on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not already aware of the genre, I don't think you would. But I mean, when he woke up in the pod, because I had no idea what The Matrix was about when I saw it.
Really?
Because I wasn't paying attention to it. I thought it was just another action thriller with trench coats and stuff. Yeah. And I only saw it because my girlfriend at the time loved Lawrence Fishburne and wanted to go see it, so she basically dragged me to it. I mean, you don't have to drag me to any movie. I'll see anything. Yeah. Really. I'm a movie fan.
Well, you were glad you got dragged to that one.
But I remember standing in line and looking at the poster and be like, God, I can't wait to see what stupid papers they're after. So I thought it was going to be like an espionage thing.
Really?
And then I'm like, this is different. And then he wakes up in the pod and I was like, oh my God, they went and made a William Gibson movie and nobody told me. What the fuck? Like, it was amazing. Like, it was one of two times in my life I've been completely shocked and surprised by a movie, the other one being Predator, because my mom took me to see that without telling me what it was.
Oh, wow.
And I thought it was just like Commando.
You have a cool mom.
I thought it was just like, Arnold Schwarzenegger running around in the jungle with a bunch of dudes and guns. I'm like, yeah, cool, I'll totally see that. And then like a monster showed up and I'm like, oh my, what? Like, it just, I was like, what, 11? Yeah. Like you blew my tiny mind. I didn't know you could put sci-fi monsters in a Commando movie. That was not a thing I thought of.
If it was up to my mom, we would go see Medea movies. That's like the only movie she goes to see in the theater.
Well, I would go
Medea.
see
Tyler Perry stuff. She loves it.
Well, I would have seen what we did Tyler Perry's Halo at one time with Medea's Master Chief.
Yeah,
that was a pretty good skit. Look that up on YouTube if it exists somewhere.
All right, let's go to the next game. EA is going to be at Gamescom like it usually is.
Joy.
Probably the big debut is going to be Need for Speed Heat.
The game that they swore a week and a half ago that didn't exist.
Yeah, and now it's it's a known quantity.
Of course it is.
In fact, they're saying it's going to be unveiled tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
Yeah, so we're going to get a look at that a little bit before Gamescom actually kicks off.
I don't get I like Need for Speed. I've always been a fan of Need for Speed, even going back to the first one on the 3DO. But I do not understand why every other franchise EA has slips up even once and you never see them again. And Need for Speed bombs over and over and over and over, and they always get another shot. Like it's if Ghost Games was any other developer under EA that had been taken out back already.
Oh yeah, why have they survived somehow?
I mean, I guess they assume that this should be the easiest thing to convert into a mainstream hit at some point because it's happened before.
I mean, look at the Fast and Furious; it's gigantic.
Yeah, but
I think the problem, though,
They're
is that
never good.
You're right. Well, they're never good. And I think part of the problem, too, is that they have tried to replicate that franchise with this game the last couple of times, and they've just fallen flat. Like, for whatever reason, that movie franchise just has this special sauce about it.
The special sauce is the characters.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. It's about family. It's a character-driven thing. People go to see those characters. It's like Marvel. People go to see those characters. Are the stories great? No. The action's cool. We love the characters. I'm there to see Roman. I'm there to see Letty. I was there to see Brian until, unfortunately. I'm there to see the scenes where Vin Diesel tries to make himself look as big as The Rock. And they act like they're equals, even though The Rock's the one that although, I don't know, I said The Rock's the one that made it international hit, but while Hobbs and Shaw is doing well, it's not doing as well as the mainstream films, which to me...
I mean, that's not a surprise. But.
No, I mean, it's a little bit of a surprise because people kind of thought those two were the big stars. Plus, you got Idris Elba. Like, there's some real power behind that, but... It just goes to show what I already said. Like, people are there for the dynamic. They're for It's like how people see Avengers movies more than they see the individual movies. You want to see everybody together. You want to see the family. You want to see everyone.
I think some people are there to see the women as well.
Partly, but like the other problem, well, they're making a movie that's just the women too.
Oh, they are?
That's their next spinoff.
Oh, okay.
Because Michelle Rodriguez is like,
yo,
come on.
Exactly.
And like, I think that's part of the problem that Need for Speed has is like they can't get decent characters in these games to save their lives anyway. But if you want to make it a Need for Speed thing, you have to not only come up with some good characters, you have to stick with them for multiple games. Like, you have to make it a thing we want to come back to and see these characters again and be part of that crew. And
that's a good point.
Every single time they try to put characters in these games, they just turn out to be like generic bros. And
they're terrible.
And like they do like the weird FMV stuff they did in that one. Was it like two ago, or was it?
I think it was 3 ago now.
I actually bought this week. There was a 3-pack of the last 3, like Need for Speed Payback, and Need for Speed Rivals on Xbox Live for $19.
You bought it?
I bought it for all three. I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't have those. I'll do that. And like I played some of it, and I'm like,
why did I do this?
You can I mean, I like Rivals. I think Rivals is pretty good.
Yeah,
Rivals is just sort of an open world hot pursuit thing, and it works. Payback is garbage.
Yeah.
Like, it's just
that's
terrible.
The one that's all the
That's
CG.
the one with all the FMV stuff, and it's just like, oh my! It looks like 2000. It looks like a PS2 game.
It does
in terms of how they integrate the FMV.
The quality of the CG also is not great.
No, none of it works.
Yeah.
And then the Need for Speed no subtitle is. You instantly feel the microtransactions. Like it's just
and they haven't changed it.
No, the
despite
progress
all
gating's
the
still there.
complaints.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it. It's crazy.
So
in the end, I really paid $19 for Rivals.
Yeah, and so I guess what we're saying is for the next Need for Speed to succeed, it needs to establish a cast of characters we care about.
I think so.
It needs to stick with them. It needs to be smarter about how it handles microtransactions. And I would argue it needs to be open world.
Yeah, I'd agree with all that.
So there's your recipe, EA. Now go
see
get
what
cooking.
This is. I mean,
it's too late now.
I mean, Heat implies to me that it's a hot pursuit kind of thing.
Yeah, which is good.
Which
I'm
is
okay
good.
with that.
That's the most successful things they've had. I also wish my other thing on my wish list for the series would be to go back to the weird shit. Like in the original Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, the original Need for Speed 3 on the PS1 and PC. Bunch of the tracks were just weird, like Atlantica. And like weird, almost like non-existent, fantastical places.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be like grim and gritty down in the street. You know, you're not making you're not making Underground again for some reason.
Yeah, why don't
because Underground 3 would be the thing that would bring the boys to the yard.
Yeah, as they say. Yeah.
But like, if you're going to continue to sort of make sort of these standalone one-off things, at least make it interesting. Like, just another set of generic streets isn't going to make me sit up. Hell, after Cyberpunk, they'll probably make a Cyberpunk one.
I'd be down.
I'd be down with it. Yeah, that'd be all right.
That sounds cool, actually.
Need for Speed 2077. Yeah.
It would be funny if like there's this cottage industry that springs up around Cyberpunk because of that game.
And they all bomb.
And they can all use the 2077 because they can't actually
copyright
trademark that.
2077, yeah. Or it's just like 2076, 2076, 78.
Right. They're like, this happened just before Cyberpunk.
This is what started it all. Yeah.
A street race. Okay, so there you go. That's Need for Speed Heat.
Which will inevitably be way more boring than everything we've just
I think actually just watching us talk about it will be more fun than actually playing the game or watching the trailer when it comes out tomorrow. Next up, plans for...
that's a good question. Do you think Need for Speed Heat will be on the Switch?
Yes, I do actually.
I don't think it will.
You really?
Because EA's been talking so much about how they don't want to.
No, that's a good point. Just lately too, in the last week and a half, EA's been planting the seeds of basically deserting the Switch.
Yeah.
That's what's been going on.
The rhetoric
press.
is definitely pointing that direction.
It's like we're starting to butter people up for what's coming.
So I'm super curious because this game feels like it would. I mean, I'm not one of those perfect for Switch people, but it's like clearly this thing could scale.
Yeah,
you know, whatever it is, I'm sure it can scale. It makes sense as a Switch game
because there's still
there's no reason not to.
There really isn't. And there's a huge hole in the Switch's library for games.
There's not a lot of racing.
The racing games that actually have real cars for the Switch, a lot of them are just mobile games that are being ported over to Switch. So I believe if they did put Need for Speed Heat out on Switch, it might sell.
Yeah, I think it would sell pretty well.
It might be the best-selling version of the game.
It's possible.
I really think that might be possible.
Yeah, because there's just nothing else.
Yeah, but I agree with you. You're right, man. All the signals that EA is sending out right now is, hey, look, we're about to bail on Switch. Yeah. So we'll see. Hopefully we're wrong, but I think if there was one franchise,
I mean, it's not like they've been robustly supporting it to this point.
No, I mean, it's been anemic already.
It's been FIFA, half-assed FIFA is not like the support that you're getting from, say, Ubisoft.
Yep, for sure. Okay, next up, Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 3. I think we thought this was going to be unveiled a couple times, and it hasn't been. I think this is definitely the moment for this game to be shown. That's kind of how Gamescom works for a lot of third-party publishers. They have their gigantic stuff for E3, and then they're like, hey, what stuff did we cut that just barely missed the cut for E3? And then they'll debut that at Gamescom. At least that's been the pattern over the last 10 years or so for most of the big third-party guys.
So is this the only thing we've seen of it, this Fortnite?
Oh, this is from Garden Warfare 2. Yeah, this isn't even from 3. They haven't shown anything yet from 3.
So it's just we know it exists, but we're waiting for them to talk about it?
No, I mean, we know it exists, right? And the studio has been hinting that, hey, we're finally going to unveil our new game soon. So all signs are kind of pointing to it being at Gamescom. And it's not like EA has a vast library of IP right now.
Not anymore, no.
It's hard to believe. I mean, it owns more IP probably than any publisher in the industry. It just doesn't do anything with it. Instead, we get a third-person shooter based on Plants vs. Zombies.
Right. Although I guess you could argue that Nintendo's creeping up on them with their lack of legacy library support on the Switch.
That's true. Yeah.
In the days of the Virtual Console, I wouldn't have said that, but now it's just like EA and Nintendo are competing to see how much stuff they can keep in the vault.
It is kind of weird.
Although,
it's what's the plan?
Well, at least Nintendo put out the Super Nintendo Classic and the NES Classic and stuff. EA doesn't even have that.
They threw us a couple bones, basically.
But EA's got a whole bunch of classic stuff just sitting.
I mean, I know why Nintendo does it. It's because it makes money off of that old catalog, and it's just trying to squeeze as many extra pennies out of it as it can.
Well, if you want to squeeze pennies out of me, you should start putting Super Nintendo games on the Switch.
Yep.
Which I guess there's a patent I saw that went up for a Super Nintendo controller for the Switch.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good sign. But EA, meanwhile, is like, dude, make a new Starflight, you jerks! They
have so many.
They've been sitting on Wing Commander forever.
Yeah. Instead, like I said, we're getting a third-person shooter based on Plants vs. Zombies. Yep. It's crazy. I mean, the truth is...
third-person shooter.
Yeah. The truth is the first one sold really well. Yeah. The second one didn't sell quite as well. And my guess is the third one will fall a little bit further.
And we'll see if this becomes the next Need for Speed.
Right.
Where they just keep trying over and over.
They won't give up. Yep, it could be. Next up... Going to switch gears to Ubisoft. Rainbow Six Quarantine. Remember this from E3?
Yeah.
It's a game they blew out on stage but didn't show, really. They gave us this trailer that we're seeing right now, but unlike all
zombie...
it's a cooperative zombie shooter, and it's a Rainbow Six game.
Tom Clancy rolling in his grave.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that this...
Maybe Tom Clancy's like the final boss.
Yeah.
Do you comes back to reclaim his trademark.
Do you think this helps or hurts the Tom Clancy brand?
I don't think it matters.
Really?
No. Tom Clancy's a wide brand, and it's not like anyone's going to see this and be like, "What? I'm not buying." I forgot the name of the new game, the Wildlands sequel, Breakpoint.
Breakpoint. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not buying Breakpoint because they're making a zombie game. That's not going to happen.
But what about Rainbow Six though? I mean, we're kind of seeing this with Wolfenstein kind of did this. It had its serious single-player campaign, and then it had kind of a cooperative spin-off.
I don't know. I killed enough steam mecha zombie dogs in Wolfenstein single player to not consider it super straight.
Yeah.
But Wolfenstein's always been a little wacky. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Rainbow Six obviously started as almost a strategy game, but it's
Yeah.
become more and more arcadey over the years. There are people that said that like Rainbow Six Vegas ruined the series because it was too shootery.
Right, but this is going way out of bounds.
It's just a spin-off.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
I just wonder how hard it is once you establish a personality for a brand like that, how hard it is then later if you want to re-engage fans or customers on the original concept if it proves to be a challenge.
Well, I don't think Siege is really struggling right now.
No, it's doing
Siege
great.
is doing great. Like this is
like
more
3 or 4 years running.
I think
now.
this is more like trying to capitalize on the success of Siege to get them to people to play something else.
But Siege is on brand. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a hardcore tactical shooter.
But I don't see any reason you can't play around with it a little bit.
It just seems strange to me. I'd never, like, if you'd show me that game, I never, ever would guess that that's a Rainbow Six game.
No, but like at the same time, if you just called it Quarantine, a lot fewer people would pay attention to it.
Yep.
Like you're using the brand to you say, hey, you like shooting things? There's zombies in this one, but you're still gonna. I mean, that's the thing to me is like when you say it's Rainbow Six Quarantine, and I'm like, oh, it's a zombie game with Rainbow Six. I don't think, oh, you're being weird with the Rainbow Six brand. I think, oh, I bet the shooting in that will be as good as Rainbow Six Siege.
Okay.
I think to me that seems like a mark of quality, and like I don't have to worry about being like some kind of weird one-off shooter they slap together because if they're using the Rainbow Six name on it, they're going to need it to be a certain level.
A lot of it will depend, too, on how it plays. I mean,
Yeah.
look, if it has breaching and all that kind of stuff and all the cool gadgets that's
Yeah.
in Siege, then it's not that hard to kind of roll it back, but...
I mean, some of that I guess wouldn't. I mean, I'd love to see someone try to use a flash grenade on a zombie. It's just like
Their eyes don't work, bro. So anyway, my guess is because all of Ubisoft's other catalog was blown out with gameplay and demos at E3, my guess is it's Rainbow Six Siege or Rainbow Six Siege. It's Quarantine's turn to get like an on-stage gameplay demo or just have
probably. I mean, I
walkthroughs.
would guess like the booth will be a lot of Breakpoint, and like this will probably be their look at the new thing.
This is Ubisoft's home turf as well.
Yeah.
And so I would guess that Ubisoft would want to debut something for Europe instead of just showing...
Unless we get lucky and we see some Beyond Good and Evil 2.
That would be sweet.
Which is supposed to have had its beta late this year.
Right.
But
yeah,
there's
that might be one of those
a lot
games
of conflicting reports as to how well that's doing behind the scenes. So.
Oh, really?
I mean, people talking about like how far along it is, whether it's going to happen even at all. Like,
oh, geez.
I mean, some of that might just be like expectations set up by the fact that this game has been, probably through 3 or 4 different iterations and in limbo for like the last decade. But like, I tried to play the first one on PC the other day because I have it on Steam, and like none of it works properly. Like, it doesn't even have controller support. Like, it's so old.
You have to play with a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, and like you can fix it with like Joy to Key. You can set up a controller thing, but I'm like, I'm just gonna go play it on Xbox. But on Xbox, you can't flip the Y-axis without flipping the X-axis too.
Oh, right.
Which
That's
is
true.
like, that's weird.
That is weird. Yeah.
2004, man. It was a different time.
Next up, we're going to shift gears to another publisher, Marvel's Avengers. I feel like this game got beat up pretty bad at E3.
Yeah.
The gameplay leaked with
And then
cell
everyone's
phone
like,
camera.
oh, that's fine.
Yeah, now all of a sudden the
Which was
opinions have
kind
changed.
of what we pretty much said.
It is, yeah. We
It's
tried
like-
to tell people, don't get too down on it. It's not that
it's fine.
bad.
It's just not very inspiring.
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
like, I just felt it was sort of, all right, that's fine. Like, but you want more than fine from Avengers.
Oh, yeah,
You want
absolutely.
more than, I mean, especially in the wake of Endgame, you're like, I just came off this crazy, popcorn blockbuster high on this thing after 11 years of build-up, and then you show me this. And I'm just like, oh,
yeah.
all right. I mean, sure. But you have seen some stuff where like things have leaked of like skins and stuff. There's a skin that I mean they didn't leak so much as someone took a picture of them at Comic-Con at the panel and they weren't supposed to or whatever, but everybody does that. But like it was a skin of like Captain America that you could clearly tell because of the outfit and the skin color it's Sam Wilson. It's Falcon as Captain. So I think you're going to be able to like fully reskin all these characters into something you like. If you don't like the character designs on this, I think that's part of the trick is like they're going to sell you all kinds of skins. Also, remember it's Square Enix publishing that, and if there's one thing Japanese companies love, it's selling you like endless numbers of skins.
No, that's true.
To customize your characters in
Yeah.
every game now.
Make a lot of money
So,
from it.
and Marvel did that in Marvel Heroes, which shut down the Gazillion game, which was great. And part of me thinks that they're taking one of the reasons you shut that down is because you're going to use that same business model on this.
Probably so. I'm surprised that we haven't already had the demo from E3 publicly released. I figured once the cell phone video came out, which they also did not zap, by the way.
No, they didn't go out. I think because once they saw people were kind of like
changing their minds.
Yeah,
on
I
the
don't know
game.
if positive is the word for it, but everyone's like, no, it looks all right.
It was just like, not negative.
No, it wasn't like oh my god, everybody, because at E3 it sounded like it was a complete disaster.
Well, I mean, I talked to one of the people working on the game at E3, and they were bummed.
Yeah, they weren't ready for that. They didn't think they were. I mean, I also think that judging by the level of presentation and the stuff in that booth and kind of the pomp and circumstance around the presentation they had there. I mean, there were dedicated people like with headphone mics, like introducing it with like the clearly written by PR speech, and like you got like a folder with dossiers and like a special bag. I mean,
the booth was like a secret base.
It was all like a shield. It was like a corner of the helicarrier kind of thing. And like they clearly thought it was going to be kind of the talk of the show, but like on Thursday you'd walk by that booth and people would be like, "You want to come in?"
Yeah, there's no
one there.
The signage wasn't great either to let you know that that's the game that was there.
Yeah, well, also because of that, and because of there was a similar design to the Final Fantasy VII section. A lot of Square's booth was just sort of nondescript metal. Yeah, and it was a little hard to tell what was what.
Yep.
There wasn't a lot popping at Square's booth visually.
No, you're right. It was hard to tell like where the games were that you actually wanted to check out.
Yeah, but I think you're seeing, you definitely saw with the leak an unexpected sort of, not necessarily turnaround of public opinion, but a softening. And I'm wondering if for Gamescom they will show different gameplay. Because if I were in their shoes, I would now want to show gameplay footage from a section where the Avengers are fighting as a team.
Yeah.
I would want to show more of the co-op, more of the teamwork, more of what.
Because we saw the demo. Yeah. And, I mean, the press saw the demo, and the press ultimately is the one who kind of disseminated that information out to the public, which is why the opinion kind of turned sour. Right. And so like, you show that same demo. I honestly think they will.
They might, but like I feel like that demo, maybe you release that demo as a video. Right. But if I was calling the shot, and if I had the the bandwidth to do another, I mean, who knows what kind of time they have to do that? Making an E3 demo is not just an overnight thing. But I would definitely want to show something that explains why this is an Avengers game, because one of the weirdest things about showing what they did, which is, I mean, it's clearly the campaign tutorial. It's clearly like where they introduce you to all the characters one by one, and you learn how everyone plays. So you don't want a lot of co-op crossover here. But the problem with that demo, I think a lot of Avengers fans was like they don't fight as a team. Yep. And I think if you want to show how that give and take works in a section of the game that's kind of where everything's sort of more established and everything's kind of all the features are in play. I think that would go a long way towards sort of shifting opinion further of saying like, oh, that's what this is.
No, I agree. So I mean, it would be smarter.
I just don't know if they have the bandwidth to do something like that.
I just think what the public is going to see is the demo that we saw at E3. Mm-hmm. I think they'll just release the whole demo in direct feed 4K. And
I think that would be a good thing to do first when Gamescom starts. And then at the end of Gamescom, and do that the more co-op focused demo on the floor, and then at the end of Gamescom release that.
Gotcha. Okay.
That would be what I'd do.
Well, they'll probably put out a new trailer too.
If I had like infinite manpower and budget and time, because I have to imagine that is not what was in their plan. Like,
for sure not. I mean,
I'm sure they intended to ride that E3 demo until launch, basically.
Probably, yeah, but that's not how it worked out.
Like maybe a couple more trailers, obviously. Maybe like
they'll definitely put out a Gamescom trailer.
Maybe a Game Awards
at the end of the year
or something at the end of the year. But like, I feel like they were thinking I think they thought it was going to be a thing where like we saw like that demo, and then they maybe released that demo at Gamescom time, and like that would just be everyone would just be in a frenzy to play this thing, and that's all they needed to do, and it all went sideways. Yeah. So I think, but at the same time, I think it's a good sign that people saw the leaked footage and were like, nah, that's fine. Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah. For the sake of the person I spoke to, I was glad to see that because he was bummed.
Yeah. There's an interesting kind
of... You work on something for like 2 or 3 years and you finally show it to people and they're like,
like
it's
the
tough.
Phenomenon of what happened there is interesting to me because like, because I saw the game on Thursday. I saw the game on the last day of E3, and I came out of that just like sort of like, and I saw it with like the crew I was with. The crew I was with on the floor the whole week for IGN. We were we went by the Square stuff a lot, and like finally like the producer and we're like, let's go make an appointment for event. Like we want to see Avengers.
Yeah.
Like, so we went and made that appointment. We went in after we were done on Thursday. We went in and saw it at our appointment, and we all came out. And this was like me and like the host was like a gamer, like YouTuber guy in his 20s, and the producer was a producer in his 20s who didn't really play a lot of games. And we all agreed, we're like, we don't know why everyone hates that so much.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't inspiring, but like I've seen way worse things.
Oh yeah.
And and I was like, I felt like we had a really good spectrum of like old guy with a lot of experience, younger guy with a lot of experience, younger guy without a lot of experience, and we all had the same opinion pretty much. And I was very curious of like, how did this get so negative?
Because our society is all or nothing anymore.
Sort of, but I'm also wondering what drove that kind of opinion of the story. Because like and my uneducated insight on it would be. I think people did react negatively to the character designs, like initially.
I did.
Because you're like, wait, what's that? Like, because I think we were all sort of thinking they were going to look like the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with them not looking like the movie. I'm used to video games not looking like their movie versions. I mean, they all look like that in Black Order. Although, as you said at the time, like it's a more cartoony art style, so it's easier to accept. These look like real people, except they don't look like real people because I don't think I think they're too symmetrical and they're not flawed. And the faces aren't flawed enough. If you added more like
that's the uncanny valley stuff.
Yeah,
that's the type of stuff you have to do to get rid of it.
Her face and Thor's face are just too smooth and symmetrical. Like they need a little character. I wonder if like that kind of reaction plus like I think the press had the same reaction because we're all fans too, and the public was clearly tweeting like the negative reactions, and I wonder if that really led to people going and seeing the demo, like kind of doubling down on their already existing negative impression and writing up these things about how this is this most uninspired terrible thing. And then if you go in and just sort of like don't have that sort of zeitgeist pressing down on you a couple days later, you're like, oh, it was fine.
Yeah, what's everyone talking about?
Or in the case of the mainstream public, a case of people on Twitter when the leak happened, I mean, that was a month and a half later.
Yeah.
It's like, kind of like all that sort of dissipated and you're sort of like looking at it with slightly fresh eyes and you're like, oh, it's just a video game.
It's an Avengers video game.
And it should maybe be more than that, but it's also not the end of the world.
I think that's a big part of the problem, too, is expectations.
Yeah.
Avengers is the biggest film in the history of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people expect the game and other things based around that IP to kind of hold up to that standard, and that's impossible. I mean, it just is.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to live up to, but it's also like expectations got to be realistic.
Yep.
And we don't know what the rest of it holds.
People never have realistic expectations anymore. Everyone thinks that they're going to the moon, they're shooting for the moon, and they're going to get there, but that's not how life works. Next up, a game that has been MIA for a really, really long time, Dead Island 2. So this game has also kind of been restarted a couple times.
Yep.
By the way, this trailer that we're watching right now is from E3 2014.
Yep.
5 years old.
I did work on a project in 2014 involving this.
You did?
Game.
Can you talk about it?
No, but all I'll say is like, what we're gonna get is gonna be very different. I bet this game's gone through a lot of weird permutations.
There's some gameplay.
So all I can say is it was real.
Yeah,
it was a real thing.
Oh, there's gameplay from this version, from the 2014 version on YouTube. It leaked out, and I'm surprised that it hasn't been taken down, but I found it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you look on YouTube, there's some early beta footage of this game out there, and it just looked like it just looked like a typical like zombie shooter, honestly. Like just Dead Island again. Yeah,
except you're not on an island.
Yeah. Well, this trailer is like it's in
Santa Monica.
It's Venice. Yeah. It's like, wait a minute, California's not an island yet.
Well, I mean, technically,
give us a couple more earthquakes.
Technically, all the continents are islands. I guess.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Touche.
I'm like, what, are you going to end up on Catalina?
But, so, again, this game has been missing for like 5 years now. Deep Silver, the game's publisher, basically took Jaeger off of the project a few years ago and handed it to Sumo Digital, I believe.
Yeah.
And now Sumo's been working on it for a couple years, and now over the last couple weeks...
I want this dude's headphones, because they must be
really loud. Yeah. Talk about noise canceling. So there's a new developer who's been working on it for a couple years now. THQ Nordic, which is the parent company of Deep Silver, so basically THQ Nordic is publishing it, said that it has a major reveal for Gamescom coming up. So all signs are basically pointing to Dead Rising 2, Rising from the Grave, and us getting a look at it. Honestly, for most people who haven't found that stuff on YouTube, it'll be the first time seeing the game in action at all.
Well, whatever we see will not even probably be related to what was on YouTube.
Yeah,
so
probably not.
They started completely over, as far as I know.
What do you think that they should do? Because, look, a lot of time has passed since the first Dead Island, and I would argue that the first one wasn't great, but for whatever reason, man, it really resonated. It sold like crazy.
I finished it.
It was really janky.
It was, but like you could get around it. Like I finished it. I think I got 1,000 out of 1,000 achievements on it. Like my online crew and I played that to basically played it into the ground.
You finished it. Literally
it
finished it.
Yeah. I did not play Riptide or any of the subsequent
expansions
things,
or anything,
like Escape from Dead Island or whatever that was. They made like a it was almost like an adventure game.
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember that. Yeah, I didn't play any of those, but
I remember when this game came out and I played it. I thought it was like janky and like borderline broken.
It was.
I didn't have to review it for Game Trailer; somebody else was handling it, but I played it to talk about on Invisible Walls. And my impression was that it was crazy janky, borderline broken, and that the debut trailer for that game just sold people like right out of the gate.
It didn't hurt. No.
Remember that trailer? How amazing it was?
Yeah. Well, God, I remember for that one project, we needed footage of like the end of the game, and I remember I had to play through the first game in a day.
Oh God!
Like I had to burn through it in a day.
Oh man!
It was so I basically speed ran Dead Island. And
that's not the type of game you want to have to speed run.
It wasn't easy, but I'd already done it before. I played it before, so I'm like I kind of knew what I was doing and how to get around stuff. If I hadn't spent already like 80 hours playing that game, I probably wouldn't have been able to pull it off.
You'd have lost it that day.
But like, yeah. But like, no, I got it done. But it was just like, that was not a thing I ever expected to have to do. But I still liked it, even that second time. I mean, it's not, I don't think it stands out well. I mean, that's the thing is, like, I don't think Dead Island stands out enough that, like, all this furor and work and effort to, like,
it's going to be worth
keep Dead Island 2 alive matters that much.
They also, keep looking at those sales numbers, though.
Because, God, when did Dead Island 1 come out? Like, 2011?
I think it was 2012.
2012? Like, it's just so long ago. Like, if you were, like, a big fan of that when you were, like, 16, you're, like, 24 now or something. Like, it's like, it's just, I mean, it's not like Kingdom Hearts where you can kind of, no matter how long it takes, you can kind of go back to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if this is going to be worth it for everyone who threw all this time and money at it, but
they just look at those sales numbers from the first one. And they're like, you know what? Even if we get half of that.
But it's a long time since a zombie game could sell that.
Yeah. I mean, Resident Evil 2 did pretty well. The
Resident Evil 2 is Resident Evil 2.
It is,
though,
yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Also, Resident Evil 2 is like one of the best games of the year still.
I know. So, like, that's really sad.
It's like.
I loved it, but that's sad.
Yeah, I mean.
That's where we're at.
I also remember the other game that I loved. Because I was looking through like releases of games, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was one of my favorite games of this year, and I forgot to mention it on the show, and now I forgot it again. It was like an early.
Then it must not have been that great.
It was.
That's what I always said.
Because I saw it, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have. Oh, Sekiro. That was it. Yeah. I was like, because I've been saying Plague Tale, but I'm like, I forgot Sekiro came out this year. I keep thinking of it as like late last year.
Nope, that was 2019.
So there's been some good stuff.
There has been, but I mean, of this generation, to me, this has been the worst year of this generation.
Oh no, 2014 was the worst.
Really?
Year. Yeah, 2014. Any year where Dragon Age Inquisition is a reasonable pick for Game of the Year, that was a down year. But yeah, I mean, this is probably number 2 so far, unless you're outside of Nintendo.
It's been a great year for Switch, but
I don't. The Xbox and PS4 have had a pretty quiet time.
Really quiet. Yeah, even the third party stuff has started to take off.
And like I'm kind of like, what do I don't have Assassin's Creed to look forward to. I don't have Watch Dogs to look forward to. Like, this fall is going to be weird.
It is going to be weird.
It's just going to be me and the Pokemon, I guess.
Well, the good news is that'll take you a good month to probably finish. Next up, another zombie game. This one hasn't taken quite as long to be released. It's also a sequel, though, Dying Light 2.
Yeah, I'm interested in that.
This game really impressed me at E3. I think it was a huge mistake for them to not release the demo that I saw at E3 to the public.
By the way, by the people who actually made Dead Island.
Right, yeah.
The Techland.
Yep. And
written by Chris Avalone.
Yeah.
Who, was the man behind the story is in Obsidian Entertainment, New Vegas and Fallout and Planescape Torment and some of the best written things in the history of the medium. So yeah, there's a lot to be excited about with this game.
Based upon the demo that I saw at E3, this may be the most improved sequel of this generation. Now, I played the first one.
I played the first one a lot, and I don't even really know why.
I think a lot of people feel that way.
Like I think I played the first Dying Light like 100 hours.
Yeah.
I still didn't finish it. That game is gigantic.
Oh, it also sold extremely well.
Yeah. And they supported it forever.
Yep. I mean, they're still putting out DLC for it. Still.
But like, yeah, I mean, I can't really. It was one of those games where I'm like, I don't know if I'd recommend this to anyone, but I sure like playing it a lot.
The reason I think the sequel is going to be vastly improved is because the biggest weakness in the first game to me was a lack of narrative.
Yeah.
There just wasn't enough story to kind of keep you motivated and keep you going. The gameplay loop was satisfying, that's for sure. And I think.
But every time like your generic main character would start talking,
shut up.
Just being, oh, come on.
I really don't want to hear from you again. Well, that's what they focused on for this. And not only does it have a great narrative, it has a crazy branching narrative. I mean,
right.
I don't know that I've seen a typical action adventure or action RPG with this much flexibility in how you experienced its pros. They have gone on record saying that your first time through, you're only going to see 30% of the plot. So that tells you that, it really branches off and kind of takes you in new directions, and it doesn't do the cheap circle back.
Right.
Because that's what a lot of games do. They'll have a branching path to...
You still get to see everything.
Yeah, but they end up bringing you back to that main storyline, and then it's like, it doesn't really matter if you play it again. This game is going to be different. So
J. Reed Vick makes a good point. This is one of the few games to have a sequel in this generation.
That's true.
It's like this and Shadow of Mordor and Destiny.
Yeah, there haven't been new IP released early in the generation that got a sequel before this generation ended. Though, I would argue that probably any game that's released for the PlayStation 5, you're still going to be able to play on the PS4.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. I mean, they didn't just churn out sequels this generation like they have in the past.
Yeah, they did try to make some new stuff.
And maybe part of it is that they just didn't introduce a lot of new IP either.
Yeah, part of it. Sony did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get another Gears. We'll get 2 Gears in one generation.
2 Gears in one gen, yeah. Forza, obviously.
Yeah. But
Forza Horizon.
Yeah.
Not
Motorsport.
Motorsport started with 7, right?
Well, I thought 6 was on Xbox One.
Yeah, it launched with 1, and then another one came out.
Yeah.
So yeah, and now they've held off.
Yeah.
I guess 8's probably gonna be a launch title for.
It'll be
Scarlet.
cross-gen, but it'll be blown out on Scarlet.
So yeah, it hasn't really been a lot of I mean, there's been sequels to games that were on the last. I mean, Doom Eternal. There's another one.
Yep.
Wolfenstein.
Yep. 2 games. Bethesda managed to do that.
But again, not reinventions of the wheel exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Watch Dogs will be.
Yeah, it'll make it in time.
Watch Dogs had 2 sequels.
Yep.
God, that's two.
That's pretty crazy.
A trilogy in this generation is unusual.
Assassin's Creed got multiple games this gen. So some did, but
well, Ubi can crank that shit out.
Well, when you have like 5,000 people working on each game, I mean, Ubisoft has really kind of revolutionized game development.
Yeah, they've really got kind of they're sort of the Henry Ford of
that's a good way to put it, though. That's a good way to put it. You have 5,000 people, and each one of them is just doing one little thing.
Yeah,
and it helps you build your games more quickly. I have a feeling other third-party publishers of equivalent size to Ubisoft are going to look at its model and maybe make some tweaks. EA would do very well to follow Ubisoft's model.
But then there's also kind of the feeling of like sort of the more hands-on, like individual creativity. Like the I'm over the weekend I met a guy who's an animator at Insomniac, and he worked on Spider-Man. And he's
good at his job.
He did the scene where Spider-Man meets Doc Ock for the first time, and he animated that whole thing by hand.
Whoa.
No mocap, no reference. He just did it himself.
Whoa.
So go back and watch the scene where Spider-Man first runs into Doc Ock. That was all done by one guy, basically freehand.
People who work in games are so freaking skilled, like next level talent. It's really mind-blowing.
Like when I'm talking games with someone in a bar, I don't I don't run out of words very often, but I was like, I don't know what to say to that. Yeah. That's crazy. It's amazing.
That must have been a really crappy month for you.
Oh no, he loved it.
He loved it?
He's a huge Spider-Man fan, so it was basically his dream.
Every day was like waking up and going.
Oh yeah, he was like animating Doc Ock and Spider-Man, and like he's like, I get paid for that. I goes, yeah. He loves his job. He loves what he does, but he's also amazing at his job. But like giving someone a scene like that to really focus on and really like make their own like that, I feel like is not a thing that necessarily happens in the assembly line.
That's true.
Development process. So it's kind of it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off
for sure.
But I think what Insomniac ends up with is proof of the quality of doing it that way. But not everyone can afford to do it that way. Not everyone's got Sony money coming down the pipeline until it's done.
Yeah.
Last Guardian.
Next up, a brand new game, as Sega said, and I hate this term, but Sega used it, a brand new AAA game coming from Sega is going to be announced at Gamescom. This has lined up perfectly with the studio who created Alien Isolation announcing that it has a big announcement coming up. So all signs are pointing to, finally, that team showing off its first-person horror shooter that it's been working on for quite a while at Gamescom 2019. How do you feel about that concept of a game coming from that team?
Fine. I mean, Alien Isolation was great.
I mean, I just looked. Its Metacritic average was like 7.3 or something. It's one of those games that over time has increased in stature.
Like, I can understand if you need to review that on a deadline, it might get annoying because it's so slow. It's methodical. It's there's not much fighting. It's more like hiding from this thing.
Yeah, it's a stealth game, basically.
And sneak 'em ups are hard to review on a deadline because you have to be patient to play them well, and being patient is hard when you know that you got to get this done by Friday. But if you don't have that kind of pressure and you're just playing this game as a fan of Alien, it's phenomenal. The AI stuff they did with the Alien is great. Like, they have two AIs running on the Alien where like there's the AI that's hunting you and there's the AI that always knows where you are, but the two AIs never communicate.
Oh.
So the hunting AI doesn't know where you are, but it hunts intelligently to find you. But then the AI that knows where you are can kind of tweak how the alien behaves to make it scarier.
Oh, interesting.
Or to make it easier, or to make it be a close call. Like if the hunting AI happens to find where you're hiding, but the AI that knows where you are knows that the hunting AI has no reason to suspect you're there, it'll do like it'll kind of come close, but it won't necessarily jump in.
Interesting.
And like so, it just makes it.
That's music to my ears.
It makes it like have this crazy tension of like it's not cheating, but it's sort of cheating to make it better. It's sort of cheating to make it like more exciting for you, but not to ruin the game for
I honestly don't care if they cheat. All I care about is the end product. And if the AI behaves realistically, then
that's
a winner.
That's the star of that game is how the xenomorph behaves.
And I am hoping that technology is brought over to the horror shooter. Because I'll be honest, horror and first-person shooters, two things I love a lot. There aren't enough games that combine the two together.
Yeah. And
there just aren't. I don't know why.
And multiple times playing Alien, I was thinking like, if I actually had a gun here, or like some kind of like offensive ability beyond like the basic stuff they give you, sort of, which are really more like you can't kill the alien. It's more like you can delay it.
Yeah.
A lot of times I thought like if this is kind of an Aliens game and it was it would still work. It would still work because you'd have these things coming out of the walls and you wouldn't necessarily know where things were going to happen from, and like it would still be good. So I don't know, maybe they're making an Aliens game. I don't know. They could make anything really. I mean, straight up horror, but like it's Sega, so like you kind of assume there's going to be some IP involved somewhere because Sega does tend to leverage nostalgia in some way.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I think that team's great, so I'm excited to see what they do next.
I'm actually completely puzzled why there aren't more horror shooters. To be honest with you, I don't get it. Both are popular. Obviously, anything zombie-related or horror-related tends to do pretty well in games. First-person shooters arguably are the biggest genre in the industry, except for maybe action RPGs at this point. The only games that tend to combine the two are like cooperative shooters. There aren't a lot of great campaigns that are horror shooters. Doom, I guess you could count it, but Doom is kind of like tongue-in-cheek, like... I don't know if I'd really call it like a horror shooter.
I mean, I guess Fear would be the closest thing.
And that's how old now?
That was a long time ago,
That's 12 years ago or something like that. So to me, this is a whole, like a genre that hasn't really been satisfied or filled for a really long time. I think it could have a huge impact. All signs are pointing to that being the game, or it could be a new Knights game.
Well, if it's a new...
Because Sega just announced that it's also working on something Knights related, and we haven't seen that yet, so it could be Knights.
Well, as a huge Knights fan who, A-rated that whole game, still owns it on the Saturn, a Knights game ain't a AAA release.
Right. Yeah,
so that's my only caveat on that.
Well, the last Knights for Wii, I think it was.
Yeah,
that was definitely not a AAA game.
Not good. No, the original Saturn game is phenomenal.
It is, yeah,
and still is pretty good if you play it today.
Yeah.
The ending theme song with the Peebo Bryson sound alike, not so much, but
Peebo Bryson.
Yeah, it was a different.
Pulled that out of the archives.
It was the ending. If you get A ratings on all the levels, because if you get the ending song is sung by two kids that are supposed to be the two kids in the game. But if you get all A's, the ending song is then sung by adults, and the adults are straight up doing like Peebo Bryson and Jennifer Warnes in impersonations, because that was like the hot duet for adult contemporary at the time, which I guess was what Yu Suzuki was into in 1996.
I could see that, actually. I could absolutely see that.
So it was kind of charming. It was. I remember when that came on, all my roommates were like, "What the hell is on television?" And I'm like, "At the end of that game, like that's the end of the game you were playing? What the hell is this?" I'm like, "I don't know."
That's funny.
Yu Suzuki is a wild man.
Next up, and we did kind of
not Yu Suzuki, Yuji Naka. Yuji Naka,
that's right. Who has just disappeared into infamy.
Yeah. I got Yu Suzuki on the brain because Shenmue 3 is coming.
What was that goofy game he made where he had to roll the egg? Billy Hatcher. Yeah.
Billy Hatcher and the something egg. I hated that game.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much the end of his development career.
Like, I hated that game in a way. Have you ever played a game that you find, like, offensive in the way that, like, you feel like it's making fun of you for playing it?
Yeah, like it
was... I was like,
feel bad
you don't respect me, and I feel like I don't respect me right now, so this needs to stop. Like,
we need a break. We're going to take a break.
We're going to take a break. You're going back to GameStop. I'm sorry. You don't get to be in the collection.
Next up, and I kind of split this out of the EA section for obvious reasons, because it's a really gigantic game that people really care about, and that's Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is their last time to show it before it comes out.
Yeah, it is.
It's November.
Yeah, so this is the last gasp for Respawn and EA for this game. What do you think they need or will show?
I think they need to... I mean, to me, it was obvious when I saw that demo that there's Sekiro in it. That there's the sword fight. I mean, I don't think they're literally taking Sekiro's gameplay, because Sekiro didn't show enough to really use that in what they would have been using early prototyping for Fallen Order. But you can see in the fights with, like the guy with the electro staff and stuff, that they're using a similar thing where, like, you're trying to break through the stamina bar, and then once that happens and you get a hit on them, the hit is lethal. Like, that's, they're making the lightsaber lethal.
That's Sekiro. Yeah, it's pretty much the same.
And I would say what they need to do now, because a lot of people seem to miss that. And, like, there was, like, I've seen, like, Twitter threads and stuff where people are like, that's not there. And people, like, show them, like, that clip, and they're like, that's clearly what's happening there. Like, well, I don't see what you're talking about. And I was like, well, okay. So what I think is the thing they could do best for themselves is to very clearly demo the combat system and show how it has more depth than just whacking something with a glowing Nerf bat. Because I see that it's not that, but clearly a lot of people don't, so I think you're going to have to spell it out.
Yeah. And pre-recording that gameplay demo to kind of get it exactly where you want might be a good idea, which is what they did with the first demo they put out.
Yeah.
But you're right, it was a missed opportunity. It was literally just someone playing without commentary.
Why you show me the Force Unleashed? Why do I got to see that?
As an unpleasant reminder of what could happen with Fallen Jedi. I mean, at this point, it's kind of up in the air how good this game is going to be. Are you confident in it still?
I am pretty confident, yeah.
Yeah?
It's Respawn, it's Stig. Like, there's no reason not to... I don't trust these people that are making this game. Like, if it is bad, it will be an anomaly from this team, from this game director, from this company. Because Respawn's quality stuff. I mean, if the people that made Titanfall 2 can't make a compelling Star Wars story, I don't know what's going on. I mean, I think they even brought Chris Avellone in as as a consultant on the script. So, like, they're doing it right, as far as I can tell.
Do you think showing that the game is similar to a game like Dark Souls or Sekiro is the right move, though? You think that's what people want from a Star Wars game, Matt?
Who knows what we want from a Star Wars game at this point? They haven't made any forever. But I think showing it's similar to that is going to win over a core audience that would be the audience paying attention at Gamescom. I don't think that's the way you sell it when you put the commercials on the NFL games in October,
Yeah.
But I think that would go some way to winning over the people who are most interested in a hack and slash action game, which, most of, I think, people who are interested in that kind of thing, and I'm one of them for certain, even though I was a latecomer to it, like, we've all kind of embraced the Dark Souls thing.
Sure. Yeah.
And kind of feel that, like, the From Software model for that is the way to do it. And, like, I mean, even Assassin's Creed took stuff from Dark Souls, and, the way the new Assassin's Creed play is like Dark Souls, but faster and with no stamina bar. So if you can show that there's a little more thought behind the combat in this than just whack, 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 die Stormtrooper, I think you're going to be in a good position with the core audience. Is the core audience that has to kind of spread the word outward to say, like, yes, this is good. Obviously, they're not the ones that solely determine what makes something a 15 million seller, which I think is what they'd really like here. I think they want 10 million.
See,
out of this.
That was going to be my next point. Yeah, it sounds good to imitate Dark Souls or Sekiro until you look at the sales numbers for those games.
Well, that doesn't have
Sekiro sold like 3.5 million, I think, at this point, which is great. But that's not what EA is looking for.
Right, but that doesn't have any bearing because A, Sekiro doesn't have lightsabers, and B, you're not making this as hard as Sekiro.
Yeah.
Like, clearly, you're not gonna do Lady Butterfly in this game. You're gonna do something where, like, you have to say, like, in Sekiro, when you miss a parry, you lose half your damn life. You pay for it if you go for it and miss it. In Fallen Order, I would say, like, if you miss that, you basically just get knocked back. It's like the consequences are what make those games hard, of, like, the risk reward. Whereas you just lower the risk on this, but you make it so you feel more like you are, clashing and parrying and giving and taking. And the most important part, I think, is however hard or easy the game is, you have to make the lightsaber feel like it's a deadly weapon.
Yeah.
Like, that's
which
where,
I think they're doing.
Yeah,
I mean,
that definitely looks like where they're going.
That's how it's designed.
I mean, I know people are upset that you can't, like, dismember people with it, but it's like, if you expected that, you're an idiot.
Yeah,
like,
that's not how Star Wars rolls.
Like, there has never been an M-rated Star Wars game, and there never will be.
There never will be.
If you want dismemberment, I guess buy the PC version and hope that they mod. Hope that the mod comes out for it.
Yeah, use a user mod.
It is not a thing. I mean, the only reason you could do the cutting things off in Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy is because you had that cheat code you could put in.
Right.
Which was basically part of the Quake engine. I mean, that was just part of how the Quake engine worked. It was not, a specifically designed thing, which you could see in the fact that, like, it was a real quick and dirty, basically, hack where, like, you hacked, when you hacked an arm off a guy, the arm still did the animation the body was doing. It just fell off the body. Right. It wasn't like a physics thing or anything. And I think in Jedi I played Jedi Academy, the backwards compatible one on my Xbox One, the Xbox original. They went BC with it. And I think you can actually cut hands off in the console version, but you can't cut limbs and arm. Like, you could, when you have that code on the PC version, you basically touch them with a saber. Like, you don't even need to swing. You just touch them with a saber, and they just sort of fall apart.
Which is actually kind of accurate.
Not inaccurate, but like, you're never going to get that in a Star Wars officially in a Star Wars game, because they have to. It was never. A lot of people think KOTOR was rated M. Was not. That's a T.
Yeah, it was a T.
You haven't really had limb cutting in a Star Wars game unless it was droids.
Yep.
Which is, I think, why in the prequels the Trade Federation uses droids. I think that's an intentional choice because Lucas knew you can hack those things up and not get an R rating. You're not going to get a PG-13 rating in the movies, and you're going to be able to make games where you hack them up, and you're not going to get an M rating. Yep. So
smart.
Yeah, it's all about marketability. You're not going to get any limb cutting in this, unless I guess you could get away with it with, like, a major boss or something. Like the last boss, you could maybe cut their head off or something. Because, like, you can cut hands and heads off, but I think if you're just constantly whacking limbs off, you're going to get an M.
Yep.
But beyond that, I think as long as you make it less like Force Unleashed, where, like, you just had the lightsaber. I mean, they described it as a lightsaber bat, where, like, you had to hack a stormtrooper like 3 times in a combo before he'd die. Yeah. And it's like, that doesn't feel good.
Yep.
Like,
and it doesn't make sense with the IP either.
So I think as long as they need to show that, like, the lightsabers are really functional as basically a one-hit kill in the way that Sekiro's swords are, and I would also show a lightsaber duel. I would show how it looks to fight someone with a lightsaber.
They need to do a developer walkthrough for combat. Literally, where they sit there and they explain how the combat system works.
Like, I don't know if that's a Gamescom thing. That might be a video I'd release, like, in, like, September or October, like, in the run-up.
I don't know. I think everything's a Gamescom thing for this game at this point, because it's the last big show.
I don't agree with that in the case of the combat thing, because I think that is something you just need to convince the core audience of. That's not a thing you need to message out to the world. People who like Star Wars and just want to play a Jedi game are going to buy it. They don't care. They're just going to accept whatever they get. Whereas like the core, I think if you could win over the Sekiro fans to something of like kind of a Sekiro light thing, you would get a lot more traction in sort of the core audience. So I would, and they're going to see that video whenever you release it.
Yeah,
so I would say like the closer to release, get them hyped up about that, show them there's some meat on that bone, and have that momentum going into the launch window would be good.
Next up, we go from Star Wars, a gigantic IP, to another IP that's almost as big, Harry Potter. So I don't know if you remember, but a couple months ago, the first footage of a game called Harry Potter Magic Awakened.
That was longer than that.
Has it been?
It was early this year.
Maybe. Oh yeah, I guess you're right. Was leaked out. Unlike
maybe last year. I don't remember. That was a long time ago.
Unlike the Avengers footage that leaked out, Warner Brothers absolutely cared about the Magic Awakened footage.
We were not supposed to see this, clearly.
Yeah, I also, by the way, we're not showing it to you. We're showing you stuff from other Harry Potter games. Because they will actually...
What is this from?
This might be the leaked footage.
This is the leaked footage.
This is the leaked footage, yeah. Adam, we got to stop showing this. You can show one of the other clips, though.
I'm like, that ain't the mobile game because they don't look like that.
That was the leaked footage. We just showed it to you, unfortunately. I should remove that from the TriCaster so we don't show it again. Hopefully that wasn't enough that the show will get flagged on YouTube because Warner Brothers has been crazy about it so far. But all signs are pointing to that game being unveiled at Gamescom. Again, there's been announcements by the developer and the publisher that they're going to show something big. This is the only known thing that they could possibly show. There's a slight chance it could be Rocksteady's game, but...
I mean, frankly, Rocksteady's game, I think, is more likely.
Really?
Yeah. Because I think this game, I think Harry Potter is a next gen.
This is Deathly Hallows you're seeing here, by the way. This is not the game.
But I think Harry Potter is next gen, and I don't think anyone's cleared to talk about next gen yet.
I mean, they already are focus grouping it. They were focused. That's where that video leaked from, was a focus test.
But like, there's no guarantee that that is an actual game. It's more of a the focus test. The people that I think, as I remember, the people that were involved in that focus test that were willing to speak about it basically said, like, the focus test was about, would you be interested in this? So I think that was more of a proof of concept thing. And the idea that that game would be ready already, and especially that, like, they'd be willing to show it. Because
it looked awful far along in that footage.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like a prototype to me. I mean, because that's just, if you're going target-wise on, like, next-gen hardware, that's basically what you're going to end up with. I mean, Watch Dogs looked real good, too, but that obviously was not a finished game.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that if it was being made by Ubisoft, I might feel more like, oh, maybe that we are going to see it, because Ubisoft don't give a fuck when it comes to showing early next-gen stuff. They're like, no, this is just an imaginary system. Well, I mean, that it could be
look at Beyond Good and Evil 2 that we saw the first time like 11 years ago, and it's still not out. So,
but so like EA isn't like that really. So I'd be a little surprised if they showed a game that's probably going to be next-gen this early. But whereas Rocksteady, it's well overdue to see Suicide Squad, which is what it's going to be, folks. Like, it's going to be Suicide Squad. I will bet money. I think WB Montreal might be working on something Batman-y. You know, there's been a lot of rumors swirling around.
Yeah, there has. Yeah.
But I think Rocksteady's making Suicide Squad, and it's about time. Although
we haven't heard a peep about that.
No.
I mean, all we've heard is Rocksteady being like, no, we're not going to show it. No, we're not going to show it.
All Rocksteady's really said is like, we don't want to make Batman again. We're not showing anything, and we're not interested in Superman.
Yeah.
So, but you put your hopes for a Superman game away, I think. I don't think they're doing that. Although, there's that...
I mean, I think I saw on Keeley's Rundown that WB was one of the publishers.
Yeah, and WB, there was a leak of a pre-order for an Untitled WB game for all systems. So, it could be Harry Potter. It could be the one thing that does. No, it was Xbox, PS4, and PC. So I don't know. It could be either, but I lean towards Rocksteady just because I think that game would probably be more current gen. And
I would be more excited if it were Rocksteady's game. I'll say that.
Harry Potter feels more like a next-gen proof of concept, which would surprise me if that game was that far along. And they just released that Harry Potter mobile thing, and I think that they don't want to split that IP's attention too much right now.
Or they released the Harry Potter mobile game as a precursor to them unveiling the console Harry Potter
game. Could be, but that's not really how, conventional marketing wisdom works. That's not to say that EA follows that.
I mean, it's called shoulder marketing. There's an actual term for it. When you use one product to promote another.
Yeah, I just don't think that really worked. like with this mobile game. Like, I don't know if that game really, what is it called, Wizards Unite?
Yeah.
I don't think
That's what we're, yeah.
I don't think that did quite what. Well, this isn't Wizards Unite.
I mean,
this is the other one.
Well, I think it did poorly compared to Pokemon Go.
They put out more Harry Potter stuff than Star Wars stuff.
Yep.
In the same space of time.
Yeah. I was surprised to read that the last Harry Potter book came out in 2007.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Oh, yeah.
They've done a good job keeping this IP alive.
Well, I mean, they still had the Fantastic Beasts stuff, and like also
the last film came out 2011. Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds right. It was 10 year. It was 10 years after the first one. The first one came out in 2001, and the first book came out in I think 98.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, the kids who grew up with this property,
they're not kids anymore.
No, they're in their late 20s. They're in
Yeah.
their late 20s, early 30s. So that that also means it's prime nostalgia time. So this is the time to start putting out high quality, big budget stuff that capitalizes on that, because you're hitting. Well, I don't know if the millennials have a lot of disposable income, but they'll probably buy a video game. So
someone in the chat says they'll take that bet. Rocksteady ain't making Suicide Squad. Emperor Dread says he'll bet you on that one.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you might want to trust Matt on this one. I'm not going to say why.
But I don't know. One way or the other, it's going to be something they can turn into some kind of Destiny-style microtransaction farm, because they did hire microtransaction experts at Rocksteady.
Who doesn't?
A while
if you're
ago.
developing a game in 2019, you're going to need microtransactions.
Yeah.
Or it's probably not going to get a green light from the
all
publisher.
things point to this being some kind of game-as-a-service thing, and the easiest DC property to turn into that is Suicide Squad.
Yep. That makes sense. Next up, what I think is the thing I'm most excited for from Gamescom, and that is Elden Ring.
You're excited for this.
Yes, absolutely. Well, how could I not be?
Because it's going to be Dark Souls, and you hate Dark
We
Souls.
don't know that yet.
Yeah, we do.
We probably do. Yeah, but is George R.R. Martin working on this?
Well, it's
not that like Dark Souls needed help in the whole.
George R.R. Martin wrote like a page of lore for it.
Is that really all he did?
Yeah, he basically wrote the world. He wrote the world.
And
the game is not being written by George R.R. Martin.
Well, I doubt there's going to be much writing in it at all.
Yeah,
From Software's games aren't heavy on the exposition typically.
No, not a lot of dialogue going on. But no, this is basically, it's going to be in the same way that like Kingdoms of Amalur, like R.A. Salvatore like created the world and the premise.
Yeah.
And like someone else pretty much wrote
the script.
The whole script. So I mean, sure, and like on one hand it's like, yeah, I'm sure that'll be cool. On the other hand, I don't feel like From has really fallen short on world building.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's not really a weakness of From Software.
The weakness is that you have to find out the world building by gathering all the scraps of paper for 40 hours. And like if you like go to the wiki and like read the backstory, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like all this stuff is really cool. I don't have the patience to go through and like piece together all the different notes and stuff.
I have no idea what's going on in Dark Souls or Bloodborne.
It's really cool if you go look at the actual summary of what it is. It's just I would say they need to be a little more forthcoming about it in the game.
A little
itself.
more overt with how they tell stories. And maybe that collaboration helps them with that in some way.
Could be, but like I feel like for George R.R. Martin, this is a paycheck and
an easy one.
Paycheck and a credit, and
he's like, wait a minute, how much money did I just make for writing one page?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like
I mean, I'm sure it was like a substantial, thing,
right
up,
dossier
but like,
or whatever.
But it's not going to be like George R. R. Martin brings you the most intricate story of politics and sword play in the history of video games.
It's not going to be like Dark Thrones.
No, and you're still going to have a stamina bar. Like all the things that prevent you from liking Dark Souls, I think are still going to be
there. Don't rain on my parade, Kyle.
You're just going to be more frustrated.
I had deluded myself into believing this game is going to be the thing that gets me over the hump.
Keep the expectations real low, and then you won't be disappointed.
I'm still really excited for it.
I mean, it certainly looks cool. I mean, I'm excited about it because I like those games, and like if you're going to like make it bigger and they're saying it's the biggest game they've ever made, and there's like a big open world element to it, and all. I'm like, yeah, you're speaking my language. Like I got nothing. There's nothing wrong with anything you're saying.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see exactly what it is. I don't think it's going to be different enough from Dark Souls and Bloodborne to break through your shields.
We'll see. I'm keeping an open mind. That's what I always try to do. I never pigeonhole myself and say I'm never gonna like this or I'm never gonna do that. I just take it on a case by case basis, and so I hope that this one, I mean, look, Sekiro already inched a little bit more my direction. I enjoyed that more than I enjoyed From's prior games.
Right. I just think this is going to step more towards the prior games than Sekiro. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And then a couple more here. Splinter Cell. We've been talking about Splinter Cell now for, it seems like, 18 months, thinking any minute Ubisoft is going to unveil the next Splinter Cell. Well, I think we kind of got our answer.
That's how Sam Fisher gets you.
Yeah.
As soon as you stop expecting him, boom.
Well, I think we figured out this week why we've been disappointed over and over, because it appears that the next Splinter Cell is going to be a VR game.
Like, that makes sense.
It makes total sense.
It's also disappointing.
Yeah, it is. But it makes so much sense. It's the perfect
the one thing
format
you know
for
what?
Splinter
Well,
Cell.
also I kind of hope that, like, I don't know if they could even do this, but I would love it if, like, when you're just
room scale stuff.
No, I mean when you just play the game normally, but when you have to do the night vision, you have to put the VR helmet on.
Oh, interesting.
And it goes beer. You know, like that.
I mean, it would be kind of cool if you did room scale stuff with it, and you literally have to hide behind things in your living room.
You can't do that though.
You can't?
Because the PlayStation VR can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean that would be cool, but like only one headset on the market can do that, and you don't want to limit yourself like that.
Do you remember one of the first trailers for the Wii, where they showed people hiding behind
the couch and playing Metroid? Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, remember? I mean, it was misleading.
That actually reminds me. So I was at a party this weekend at a bar, different party, and at the table next to us, this guy sits down with his group, and he pulls out a Switch and a projector thing and starts playing Smash Brothers projected on the wall of the bar.
Was it one of those little mini projectors that cell phones have?
It was a little bigger than that. It was. I mean, it was a big. It was bigger than the Switch.
Oh, okay.
It was like about the size of the Switch, and the picture was like maybe I'd say like 25 inches on the wall. But it's out back in the patio area, and I turned to like one of the girls at our table, and I'm like, what? And she's like, I've never seen that before. That's crazy. I'm like, this is like one of those like promotional videos. She's like, yeah, it's like the rooftop party the rooftop garden thing in the Switch. I'm like, yeah, we finally got the rooftop party.
That's what happens when somebody watches that stuff and takes it way too seriously.
But I have never seen that before.
I've never
That's a completely new one on me.
And I honestly doubt I'll ever see it again.
Now, granted, I was probably the oldest person in this bar.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just what happens.
Still, to me,
at the young'uns, but it was. Even the younger people around me were like, huh?
To me, that still just sounds like a desperate plea for attention.
Yeah, well, I saw people come up to try to play, and I don't think he had any more of the controllers.
We had to have at least two.
I think one person played with him a little bit.
Yeah.
That was it.
Oh, why would you do that?
And then at one point, he started a whole game of like where he put like 8 CPU. It was him and like 7 CPU players, and turned all the AI up all the way to like max, and he like almost won.
Wow!
Like he was very good. He was good at it.
So they're showing off
a little bit, yeah. But he only played it for like 20 minutes and put it away because I don't think anyone was paying attention. But,
so weird.
But that was a thing that happened. I've never seen it before, but apparently that happens. But it wasn't NBA 2K, but.
Look, we also don't know if PlayStation VR 2, which is coming, whether it's going to do room scale. Maybe it does.
Yeah, but if it
does, then it makes more sense.
If it does, then we ain't seeing Splinter Cell VR yet.
Yeah, we wouldn't see it at the show then.
No.
Although now rumors are swirling that PlayStation VR 2 might be shown off pretty soon.
That would be very weird.
Yeah.
I can't see them launching that system with that. Like, especially if they're going to make PSVR 1 like still work with it. Like,
yeah.
Don't like what? Who's going to do that? Who's going to like that's $1,000 right there? For a new system and a new VR set.
Yep.
Like that's crazy.
Well, Pactor was saying that he thinks Sony may bundle it for like $600 or $700 or something.
I mean, that's a pretty good deal, but like that's
still a lot of money.
That's a lot of money for something that literally has nothing to play yet.
Yeah, it's like someone coming to me and being like, "Hey, I'll sell you my brand new Lambo for half price," and I'm like, I still can't afford it.
Great deal, but yet.
Thanks, but sorry. I really wish I could. So yeah, we'll see. Splinter Cell.
Although, man, that would be a huge vote of Sony's confidence in VR. I mean, I just don't know if that's in the cards.
Yep.
I would wait a year if I were them.
And then the last kind of big third-party thing from Gamescom, Final Fantasy VII Remake. They don't really need to show any of that.
I mean, you could never mention that again until launch, and it would be fine.
Yeah, I don't think it would make much of a difference to it. I think E3 2019 pretty much sold everybody on the game.
Yeah, I mean, your audience for this is built in. Like, you don't need to, as long as it doesn't look terrible. Like, you don't need to worry about it.
But I'm guessing there'll be a new trailer or something.
Yeah, it'd be something.
They have released, I think, one trailer.
I mean, certainly, I think people would like clarity about how long this is. Like,
yeah,
how the
episodic
they're still doing the episodic
things,
and I mean, they've already said they don't know how many episodes it's going to be. I'm like, well, that's not encouraging.
Yeah, that means you have no plan.
But like, I think a lot of people want to know where this ends.
Yeah.
How long does it? Does it go to the end of Midgar? Does it go to the?
That's my guess. But
that would be the most natural break point for me.
Yeah.
Like basically the end of disc 1.
Right.
And then you got the people that are like, oh, I'm not going to play this until they release the whole thing complete. And I'm like, well, I'll see you in 2027, I guess. Like,
yeah, man, you may not be alive by the time that happens. I would just play them as they release them.
I saw a thread on the Star Citizen forums this week.
Why are you over there?
Oh, if there's
comedy relief,
if there's a live slow motion train wreck happening down the street, would you not go almost every day just to watch it slowly fold in on itself? There's always some crazy thing there, at least once a day, really.
Yeah.
And the most recent thing that blew my mind was there was a thread where people were saying, like, hey, since a lot of people that back this game are going to die before it comes out, we should have a way you can, like, set up, like, an in-game memorial for backers who didn't live to see the game released. And I'm like, what did you just say? And people are like, well, I don't. And the reason people didn't want it because like, well, that's a real life thing, and I don't want real life in my space sim. And I'm like, that's your reason for not wanting. How about just the game shouldn't take longer than a human lifespan to come out? Like, what the hell?
Wow.
What is going on?
Some people are just in too deep with that game. They've invested real money in it, and there's no way you're going to change their opinion about it.
Every few weeks you see something.
And lots of real money.
I mean, every few weeks you see something where someone's asking, like, how do I... My father had an account here, and he died, and how do I transfer it to my account or something? Like
they're lucky they even knew he had the account.
Yeah, well... From what
he handed it down in his will.
From what I understand, that has also been a thread on there about how do you put an account in your will because transferring the account is against the TOS of Star Citizen, so you have to do it on a gray market thing.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's
that's just free money to them.
Man, it's a rabbit hole. Like I go down this thing with like a couple of my friends every week. I'm just like, okay, what happened today? Yeah. But like, it's crazy. Like it is. It's astounding.
I said that as soon as I heard about it. When I heard the first amount that had been given to them, I was like, this is going to end poorly. You can't just give somebody that much money.
And here's, I mean, I'm in that game for like $700.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a bunch of ships.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for. But I'm not like. It's already gone. I mean, I spent that money like years and years ago, and now I'm just like, if it gives me access to watch this train wreck, like awesome. Like I've already gotten that much entertainment out of this. If the game comes out, it's just gravy. But here's a fun fact for Rebel Galaxy Outlaw that came out today. So Rebel Galaxy Outlaw is a cockpit, like, space fighter shooter. The first game was like played like Assassin's Creed's like naval combat. You're in a capital ship and you kind of aim the cannons and did that. The reason the first game was like that was because they wanted to make a cockpit starfighter game, but they were afraid that Star Citizen would come out around the same time and like completely overshadow them. So they made a capital ship game, and now they decided, well, Star Citizen is never coming, so we're just going to make the game we wanted to make in the first place. And now the sequel came out, and Star Citizen is still nowhere in sight.
Wow.
Amazing.
I would say get out while you can, but you can't.
You can. You can't
get your money back.
You can sell the account to someone else, though.
If you can find someone who wants to buy it.
There's a whole industry. Trust me.
All right.
If you want to unload that stuff, you can.
All right. Let's move on to the big three at Gamescom. I think in general, the big three, usually E3 is the big platform, and then Gamescom gets sloppy seconds, but since Sony didn't show up to E3 this year, Gamescom is kind of a big deal for Sony. The Last of Us Part 2, there's just rumors swirling about that game. Almost every day there's a new rumor swirling about The Last of Us Part 2.
It really looks like February.
Yeah, it's starting to look that way, like it's coming out in February. You think we're going to see a new gameplay demo from the game?
Maybe. I mean, this is another game where it's like Final Fantasy VII.
You don't really have to show much anymore.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like,
it's been a long time. I mean, it's been the whole generation people have waited for this sequel.
Yeah.
So
it's been a year and some change since we saw it last.
Yeah. I mean it's been since E3 2018.
It's absolutely a good time to release something new from it. It's also not going to hurt you if you don't. Like, they could do whatever they want here.
It could help, though.
It's
It's
people
been
talk
a
about
year,
it.
like a year, and
It doesn't matter. You could put that out tomorrow and it would sell.
I mean, it's always going to sell
millions
well.
and millions and millions. It's not going to matter. Like this thing is gold. There's almost no other property that is bulletproof the way this thing is.
So you're expecting? Do you expect a release date to be announced at Gamescom? I do.
Maybe.
I mean, if it's really coming in February, it's perfect.
It's about the right time to start putting up the pre-orders for like the special edition stuff.
The timing is so perfect because it's also so far out that if you're not tracking to get it done in time, you can start crunching and get it done. Like you're giving yourself enough leeway that even if things start to get a little dicey, you can probably still get it ready in time.
Yeah, but I also feel like Naughty Dog's pretty much got this one. I mean. They haven't. I mean, especially because they didn't have to divert any resources to making an E3 demo this year.
Right.
So if they could just slap together a trailer out of existing footage.
And I hate to just offhandedly say, "Oh, just crunch and get it done." Like that wasn't my intent at all. I feel for the people who are involved in crunch, but it's the reality of game development.
Well, certainly the reality of working at Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's also rumors that Death Stranding may get delayed. I feel like it probably won't. But
we're about to get to that, though.
But like, if that gets delayed, maybe you don't talk about Last of Us yet.
That's a good point. Next up, Ghost of Tsushima. Oddly enough, I come here for the show today, and a story breaks about Ghost of Tsushima while I'm sitting here. Rumors are starting to say that this might not come out until the PS5 is ready.
When I asked the head of Sucker Punch that last year about this at E3, I'm like, "Is that PS5? Is that?" And he's like, "Nope, that's all PS4. It's all."
Yeah,
PS4.
I mean, at the time he was telling the truth.
I believe him,
probably.
and it'll still be a PS4 game. I think. I mean, I think you'll be able to play it on both.
I mean, look at that right there. Is that real time? I mean,
yeah,
that's crazy.
I mean, look, the stuff that they pull out of in Last of Us, and even early on in the system's life on Second Son.
I mean, just look at everything moving on his hat, like.
Yeah, but that's all.
All that little straw pieces.
Yeah, but that's all just it's all automatic. It's just like algorithms.
I know that, but games don't do that. Like for instance, I'm still playing Fire Emblem. I still have not finished that freaking game.
Neither
have
I.
It is so huge, but
get your money's worth.
You do, but I notice I've been noticing little things with the visuals. Like there's one critical attack that one of the characters does where he jumps up in the air and then he throws his spear down into the ground and it kills whoever it is. And then when he lands, the spear just disappears out of the ground and then appears in his hand and he spins it around. Like, those are like the little shortcuts that game developers take because that whole animation routine of him going and getting the spear and then
Well, also, I don't want to watch him do that.
Well, so. You can do it. You can, if you're good, you can do it in a way that it happens really quickly and you're not just doing this awkward cut. But that's the difference with Sony first-party stuff and a lot of other first-party games is they go the extra mile to do that kind of stuff. Like having the straw on the hat moving, like... A lot of games just don't have that attention to detail. The gas can in the back of the Jeep in Uncharted 4.
Well, I think Naughty Dog really created kind of a culture of attention to detail in the Sony first party.
Yeah. And it's carried over, thank God. I mean, now you have Sucker Punch doing it.
And look, I mean, Sucker Punch has always had really good attention to detail. They just don't make games very often.
Yeah.
I mean, go back and look at Second Son, which I don't think was an amazing game, but there's some really detailed stuff in there. Especially that was like a launch game, right?
Yeah, I think the problem with that game is it felt like a tech demo to show, hey, look at what the PlayStation 4
There was a lot,
can do.
especially the design of the powers, with all the neon stuff,
the lighting and everything.
But go look around, there's some really impressive, especially in the the Pro update. Once they updated it for the Pro, there's some good stuff in there. I'm not saying it makes the game any more fun to play because I didn't actually finish it. It's the first Sucker Punch game I haven't finished. I just sort of fizzled out.
I didn't finish it either. Yeah.
And also, I didn't think, what's his name? Remember what his name, the character's
Who are
name?
you asking about?
The main character?
From what?
Second Son?
I don't know. I have no idea. No clue.
I didn't find him as interesting as, I don't remember his name either.
Yeah, see, I don't think they do a good job with characters in their games typically.
Sly was good.
Yeah.
I remember all the Sly characters.
That's pretty much it, though. I mean, Rocket obviously didn't catch on.
No.
And I mean, the characters in this, I think they're intentionally kind of vague. Like,
I love every time I mention Rocket when I talk to any Sucker Punch people, they always yelled at another Sucker Punch person in the room. This guy knows what Rocket is.
yeah, there's not many of us, that's for sure.
Ubisoft screwed that game.
Some people may know of it, but there aren't many people who actually.
A lot of people
it.
who know of it have probably didn't know it, but they watched a segment I made somewhere on it because I've done like 3 or 4 segments at 3 or 4 different outlets about Rocket Robot on Wheels just because I'm just gonna highlight this thing because I love it.
Well, the rumor today was that there's going to be a state of play on February 12th, a very specific date, which makes me believe that the leak is a bunch of crap.
Which is right before Last of Us would be coming out.
Right. So February 12th of next year, there's going to be a state of play. They're going to blow out the PlayStation 5, and that's where they're going to show this again, and they're going to announce that it's not coming out until the PlayStation 5 launches, and then obviously it'll be backwards compatible with PS4 as well. But it's looking like, at least according to this latest round, and again, take this with a grain of salt, it could be all BS. It looks like it's going to be kind of the marquee launch game for PS5.
Mm-hmm. Well, my main issue with that is, let's say Last of Us does in fact come out in February. So there's just nothing on Sony for 9 months.
I mean, it's kind of been that way anyway, hasn't it?
Well, I mean, we had Days Gone, and then we're getting Death Stranding in September.
Hopefully,
it's not like there's been a confluence of stuff. But
I mean, Sony's turned into Nintendo over the last couple years.
A little bit.
I mean, they basically are putting out like 2 first-party things per year over the last couple years, and they're the leader.
Well, they put out more than that last year, but
did they?
Yeah, but the big ones were Spider-Man and God of War, but they still had like smaller stuff.
I'm trying to think what they were though.
And then, this year, yes, that has been pretty much one early in the year. I mean, Nintendo used to do 1 per quarter, and Sony hasn't really even done that this year.
PlayStation's kind of, though, getting to the position Nintendo used to be, where it had 2 platforms. So now Sony has PlayStation VR and the PlayStation that it has to support with first-party software. Some would argue it's done a terrible job of that with PlayStation VR.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that PlayStation VR is taking as much of their resources as like the 3DS.
No, not as much, but it's a similar aesthetic, basically.
Sort of, but like, I mean, part of it is like they've just decided to not kill themselves supporting the PS4 in the end of its life as we move forward into the new system for whatever reason. Maybe when we see the new system, that will make more sense.
Yeah.
Like I am wondering if when they finally pop up, maybe if this thing happens in February, like will we get some kind of explanation as to why they didn't go to E3 or why they didn't feel the need to talk about anything? Probably not.
Highly doubtful, yeah.
But I mean, that is sort of the big question. Like it'd be a little awkward to have to come out and not at least address it in some sort of jokey, PR-friendly way, you know, like even at Gamescom.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, hey, I haven't seen you guys in a while, kind of thing, like something, like some acknowledgement that, like, yeah, you've been kind of running silent for most of the year.
And at that point, it will have been a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to get PSX. If this is happening, we're definitely not getting PSX.
No, that seems like it's just what PSX would have been,
but
pushed a little bit.
Because the timing works out better.
The other question is, if the backwards compatible thing is true, does it make
it is.
Yeah, but does it make it awkward to do that presentation right at the time Last of Us comes out? Because you're sort of saying, like, hey, if you just wait a while, you'll be able to play this game way better.
Yeah, it'll look way better. Yeah, I don't know. It's dicey. I mean, we're in new frontiers. And
it's also dicey because it'll be right around the time of DICE.
That's true. Right around March. And then finally, Death Stranding. More rumors been swirling that this game is about to be announced for PC.
Yeah. Like they got removed from the Sony list of exclusives on their website.
Yep.
That would be very unusual. I don't know if that's ever happened to a Sony exclusive before, at least before it came out. I mean, I think 1 or 2 Sony exclusives have ended up on, like Journey, I think ended up on PC. Was that right?
Yeah.
That was like the first one. Because usually if something, you know, for God's sake, if you're going to put any Sony exclusive on PC, you need to put that Demon's Souls on PC because that audience desperately wants a modern Demon's Souls.
Yeah.
But like usually, if Sony puts up the money for development, that game stays on a PlayStation platform.
Yep, and it funded this entire game.
Yeah, so that would be a very strange move. I mean, that's strange in the sense that it wouldn't make sense because obviously there's a market on PC that you wouldn't reach otherwise. So, and it would look amazing on PC. So, like, that makes sense. But it'd be a strange move in the sense it's very out of character for Sony.
Yeah, it also kind of softens the impact of maybe people buying it for PlayStation 5 if they can buy it for PC and make it look just as good, if not better even. Who knows? We'll see what PS5 is capable of.
Well, depending on whether you have a ray tracing capable graphics card, yeah.
Right. It'll make a big difference. So, yeah. That's Sony at Gamescom. I'm just glad we're getting...
And there's rumors that it might get delayed.
Yeah. I don't know about that, though. I mean,
like,
well, it is Kojima, so...
Yeah, well, also it's possible. I mean, you feel like once you put the big pre-order screen up on PlayStation Network, like, it's pretty locked in. But then you could have said the same about Days Gone.
Exactly.
So.
Yep. As I've been burned. I don't even know what the rhyme or reason is for releases anymore. I've been burned so many damn times on our drafts and stuff. It's like that is one thing I can definitely not predict is whether a game is going to be delayed or not.
I'm pretty good at that.
I am terrible.
I called the shit out of Ori.
You did. You absolutely did. So that's Sony. Microsoft at Gamescom. Halo Infinite. You expect we'll see anything from that?
Probably not.
I don't either.
No,
I don't think so.
I think you're focused completely on Gears right now. Maybe we'll see Gears Tactics.
That's true. That's possible.
That game disappeared a little bit.
But, we did get another look at Halo at E3. It does appear to be quite far along, so I'm guessing the assets are there if they did want to show something new.
I feel like there's no reason to split your attention when you've got Gears about to launch. Like, don't make people excited about Halo when you want them to buy Gears next month, would be
because Halo looks to be a launch game for Scarlet.
Yeah, no doubt.
And if we don't get that till late next year, I mean, you have to talk about it at E3, but
for sure.
But you don't have to talk about it at Gamescom.
No. I mean, you have to talk about it next Gamescom.
Right.
But, like, I feel like you can hold this until E3 and you're fine.
Yeah. Although I don't think they would. I think we'll see something before next year's E3. I think if this happens with Sony State of Play in February, I think you're going to see Microsoft start ramping up its promotional plan.
Maybe. I mean, if that happens in February, I think you will see like more Halo stuff done as like under the guise of like a tech presentation at GDC, like the following month. Like that wouldn't surprise me because sometimes Microsoft also has a history of sort of premiering a tech demo style thing at GDC and then releasing it publicly as more of like a hype builder. Hell, they did. That's how they announced the Xbox.
True. Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if Sony blows that out. If you see a little, we're gonna talk about Scarlet's hardware a little bit, and we're gonna show you what Halo looks like on it again, and here's what the gameplay is like, and sort of thing, and then really blow it out at E3.
It's going to be an exciting year next year watching these two.
Yeah, it's going to be like a
spar.
It's going to be like a horse race. Basically.
It is.
It's going to be who can get ahead. Which will be good for I think all of us.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, next year's going to be way better than this year was for gaming podcasts. I guarantee that for sure.
But yeah, I think right now you keep the focus on Gears and you don't need to worry about Halo right now. Yep. I mean, I know we would all probably prefer to see Halo. No offense to Gears.
Yeah.
But
I think that's just the way it is.
It's just how it is. Yeah.
It's just how it is. Speaking of Gears 5, they've had the tech tests over the last month where you can play multiplayer. At Gamescom, they're going to blow out the Horde mode of Gears 5, which has become kind of this staple of the Gears franchise. So I think it's appropriate that at a big convention that is kind of their focus.
Yeah, it's the right thing to let people play.
I think they maybe should have done that for E3 instead of the modes that they gave folks at E3. But
I don't know. I think the fact that this is playing stuff at Gamescom tends to be a little easier. Like it's getting into the Microsoft Theater and doing all the stuff at E3 is a lot of hoops to jump through to play something, especially because they don't have that many stations. Whereas at Gamescom, it's going to be more open and it makes more sense for Horde mode because the escape mode is 4 players.
Yeah,
and so Horde mode is 4 or 5 usually. You can set up more stations, you get more people playing at once. I think you have the space for it there, and it makes sense to put Horde mode there. And also you want the public to play it and get their hands on it and come out of it building hype. You probably wanted it as polished as possible. Right before launch. I think it does you better to build Horde mode hype a month before the game comes out rather than 3 months before the game comes out.
What about the campaign, though? I mean,
the campaign's next month.
Remember? Oh, what do you mean?
They're blowing a campaign out right before launch.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That was their path they set up in E3. Was they're going to do Escape, and then it was like Escape June, multiplayer like standard like
the
multiplayer
tech test,
July, Horde mode August, campaign September.
Oh, okay. So we're still getting.
So we're going to get a campaign blowout of some kind before it launches.
I wonder if they're going to do like a private event, or if they're just going to put out a trailer.
I mean, you could kind of double that up with like a launch event sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll ever beat the first game's launch event at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, where at some point I was literally playing Gears in a mausoleum next to someone's like grave.
Yeah.
I was like, that's odd. I don't. Sorry, I got. Like I don't.
I'm here to do my job.
It's like I'm just here to do my job. I do not need to be haunted after this. Thank you. Like, it's not my idea.
Please do not haunt me.
It was bizarre, like because the Hollywood Forever Cemetery has a lot of events, movie stuff.
They have we went to movies there where you sit on the lawn and like watch a movie in a cemetery.
Great. But it's just like it's not. You don't know. I mean, I'm sitting there in this mausoleum playing a game, and I just looked to my right, like the little it's little drawers they put the cremation ashes in, and it's just like there's the name of the people right there. I'm just like, this is bizarre.
Although I would say,
and you took like a. It was like a military vehicle, like from where you parked to like the event,
the actual
and
space.
they drove you in like kind of a military transport thing, and like people dressed as locusts were like popping up behind gravestones and stuff, and I'm just like, I don't.
Whoa!
It was weird.
Whoa!
It was
Why did I
super
not
weird.
go to that?
I don't know.
I was not at that.
Paris Hilton was there.
I was at the review event where we played the game. But that was just over at like Edelman at like the PR firm.
This was like the big like visible red carpety launch thing
where all the celebs show up.
Yeah, Paris Hilton was there, like a bunch of people. Paris Hilton didn't seem to know why she was there, but she was there.
This is weird. So before you got here, we have another new TriCaster TD, and I was talking to him about Paris Hilton before you got here.
That's the most anyone's talked about Paris Hilton in years.
It's so random. Like twice in an hour. Like that hasn't happened anywhere else in the world. I guarantee it. Okay, let's move on. Finally to Nintendo at Gamescom. Nintendo had an amazing E3, won E3 easily, hands down. Doesn't really have anything else to prove at this point other than maybe showing more Animal Crossing, but they showed like 40 minutes of gameplay on the Treehouse stream at E3, so I don't really know what Nintendo has to show or what it has to show.
I mean, kind of do whatever it wants.
Yeah.
So I say, more Animal Crossing, a little bit of Pokemon, a little bit of Luigi's Mansion.
Call it a day. Yeah.
You don't need to show anything new, really.
Yeah, probably see some Astral Chain or something like that.
Yeah, Astral Chain's due this month, so yeah, that'd probably be a good thing to remind people is a thing.
Yeah. I don't know if they're doing like a European Treehouse stream, though. They did do that, I think, last year, though. They did like their Treehouse stuff, but at Gamescom. And hopefully we get new demos of some of the stuff. I don't even know that I need to see more Animal Crossing for Switch. Like, it's a known quantity. You either like Animal Crossing or you don't. You already know whether you're going to buy it or not, I think, for most people. So I'm not too caught up in that. I'm always down to see more of Luigi's Mansion 3. I think the game looked amazing at E3. I really enjoyed it and loved it. Pokemon Sword and Shield, they haven't stopped promoting that since it was announced. I don't even know at this point what's left for them to divulge about the game.
I don't know. You're into kind of like where you're just divulging like little...
You're in the meta zone now.
Yeah, little minor things that the fan base is like, we're not going to like talk about, but like...
Stuff that most people don't care about, but a core group of people will get really pissed off about.
Yeah. Which is pretty much Pokemon in a nutshell at this point.
Yeah, I'm still not really quite on the hype train for this game.
I'm into it.
I mean, I know I'm going to play it. And I know I'll play it for like 50 hours or whatever. But
I know it doesn't look amazing, but it looks pretty good for a Pokemon game.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you expect from the Switch at this point? They're not all going to look like Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Yeah. I don't know. I would argue that maybe Let's Go looks better than this game. I like the art style more.
I like this a little better, I think. Like, Let's Go is a little too... I don't know.
It's a little too literal of a handheld conversion.
It's a little,
I can agree with that.
A little plain, I think.
Yeah.
It works for what it is, but I wouldn't want like the mainline Pokemon game to look like that.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, this game's going to probably have a Metacritic average of like 9.5 or whatever, and it's...
I picked that, didn't I?
Probably.
That was like my one like late year pick.
Yeah, that was a game that actually came through for you. Yeah, that was kind of dicey.
Because it wasn't confirmed yet, but it was like it was what it had to. It had to happen.
I've said that about a lot of games in our fantasy drafts. It's never worked out for me.
But when I say it, it's right.
Yeah, for some reason, it always is. And then I have a few sleeper picks from Gamescom that I think you guys should keep an eye on. Not gigantic stuff, but just kind of stuff that's been slipping under the radar that's caught my eye over the last few months. The first one is a game called Boundary. Have you heard about this game, Matt?
No.
So it's being developed in China. It is a PlayStation 4 exclusive right now, I believe, but I don't think it's going to stay that way. Or maybe it is announced for PC already. But it is a first-person shooter set entirely in outer space with zero gravity. So remember those moments from Call of Duty Infinite Warfare where you were out in zero-G shooting?
Yeah.
This whole shooter is set in outer space. And it's like a competitive shooter where you play against other players, and it's all in zero gravity. I cannot think of a more unique take on a first-person shooter other than Boneworks, which is that crazy VR shooter that they're working on. But, you know, first-person shooters have got pretty stale over the last, decade or so. So it's good to see a developer trying something new. Just the physics alone, the movement physics in this game make it completely different. If you really watch this trailer all the way to the end, you'll see people that get bumped in the wrong direction and fly all the way into infinity and away from the battlefield, but you can lock onto them with weapons while they're in your field of combat, and your weapon trail that locks on will follow them all the way into infinity. It's just a completely different way to play a first-person shooter. And it's really been getting zero hype or zero attention, and I just wanted to kind of take a moment to draw some attention to it. Maybe you can go to its game page on SIFTD and follow it. They're not putting out media for this every day, so you're not going to get inundated if you follow the game. It's one trailer every once in a while. It's also good to see a studio from China doing something really cool. A lot of this stuff from China, first of all, it's almost always PS4 exclusive stuff.
Yeah, Vincent says it's confirmed for PS4 and PC.
Okay.
Xbox version tentatively planned.
Okay. Which means if it sells well, it'll come out for Xbox. But to me, the game looks awesome. I'm a big fan of first-person shooters. I'm always looking for something different, and that game to me absolutely represents that. So keep an eye on that one. Another game, and we don't have any footage for this yet, Back for Blood, the spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead. I'm guessing we're going to get at least the first trailer of that at Gamescom.
Who's making that?
It's a new studio that's made up of guys who worked on Left 4 Dead. And I'm guessing we'll get the first footage of that. I wouldn't even be surprised if we get a full-on demo because it is kind of an indie game. It's not being ruled by a publisher. So a lot of times with games like that, it's maybe we'll get a trailer. No, you end up getting 2 hours of gameplay. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens for Back for Blood. And then the last game I want to bring up as a sleeper for Gamescom is a game called Game Deck. And this was just announced in the last week. It is Cyberpunk, obviously. It is a cyberpunk isometric action RPG where you play as video game police. So in the future...
Oh, right, game detective or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what the title means.
Yeah. And so in the future, it's... people are going to be living their lives online as much as they're offline, and there are going to be crimes committed in these virtual spaces. And in Game Deck, you're the investigator who has to investigate people using aimbots and cheat codes and stuff like that. It definitely breaks the fourth wall, and it's definitely the most unique isometric action RPG that's been announced in the last 20 years.
It's kind of a shame that the title was taken because this would be the game you would want to call Watch Dogs.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be perfect for that. But the game looks cool. I mean, check out the trailer when you have some time. The game looks great on a technical level. The concept is certainly unique. We'll see if the story ends up being ham-fisted and corny or not. Probably will. But it is...
That'll be better than Ready Player One.
Yeah. I actually had a conversation with someone about Ready Player One the other day. It was on Today's High Score. And I didn't hate it. I thought it was good, not great.
The movie?
Yeah.
Movie fixes a lot of the worst parts of the book.
I've never read the book.
The book is the worst thing I've ever read.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people.
The book is, literally one of the worst things I have ever read.
I've heard that from a lot of people. Yeah.
And not just because one of the chapters is literally 10 pages listing brands.
Yeah.
Just listing things. There's no other anything to it.
That's all it is?
It's just a list of brands. It's just a list of 80s things. That's it. There's no like theme being driven home. There's no like commentary on it. It's just a list of things. You should hear the audiobook. Will Wheaton reads the audiobook, and it's like 10 minutes of him just saying titles of things.
What?
Like, it must have taken him all day. Like,
wow. Just to read.
I don't know how many breaks I would need if I was trying to just read that and not just turn into just a droning
Captain Crunch.
I mean, props to him for pulling that off.
Kool-Aid.
But yeah, it is terrible. But like the movie fixes a lot of the issues of like Wade being a terrible person. I mean, he's still kind of a terrible person, but he's not much better than he was in the book.
He's more of a douchebag in the movie.
Yeah, and in the book he's awful. Like there's a way to read the book like a satire, like where it's not endorsing that behavior, but I don't think it's intended that way. It's sort of like the reverse of Starship Troopers, where people saw that movie and were like, oh, it was stupid, and it was like, no, it's a satire. It's supposed to be, but I don't think the book is like that. But I think Spielberg gets that a little more, and he puts sort of a little more awareness into it. So I still don't like the movie very much, but it's light years better than the book.
All right, so there you go. That's Gamescom 2019. Guaranteed the biggest Gamescom preview you're going to see this week leading up to the show. As I said, next Monday, Jeff Keighley's big unveiling event is going down, and then the show kicks off proper the next day. We will have coverage on Sifted. We will have a hub for all the content. As always, the only place you can go for big conventions to sort all the content, the mountains of content, by over 60 different categories, only at sifted.net. All right, let's move on to our next topic. I think that is the longest we've ever went on GameFace before moving to the second topic.
Yeah, it's a long time. I mean, sometimes a lot of times because you break each company in something like E3 into its own topic.
Right, yeah.
Whereas like this was just its own thing. But Gamescom's pretty big this year.
Yep, and for next week's show...
It's been getting bigger every year for several years, but...
Yeah. And for next week's show, we'll be going over all the announcements that were made the day before. So we'll be back on Gamescom next week. Next up, we're going to talk about something to me that seems crazy, and that is that Take-Two sent private investigators to the house of a YouTuber who had been leaking information about Borderlands and Borderlands 3. It's interesting because they really had no idea where he was getting the information from. They literally thought that he knew somebody inside the company and that someone inside the company was leaking information. So they send these investigators to this kid's house. I mean, he's like in his early 20s. The investigators get there. He's completely intimidated. He's like, what the heck is going on? And he sits there and like tells them stuff. He didn't have to. He could have just turned around and said, get off my property, and walked in. But he was like caught out of sorts, caught off guard, intimidated, and he stood there and talked to the investigators from 2K Games. Have you ever heard of anything like this?
Like in the game industry?
Yeah,
no.
Where a video game publisher sends investigators to a gamer's house.
No, that's a new one on me.
This is insane.
Take-Two is a bunch of dicks.
They really are.
I mean, we knew that, but wow.
And then the crazy part really about the whole thing is that he had no source.
He was just making it up?
No, he wasn't making it up either.
He was just like deducting.
Take-Two screwed up.
Oh, what?
So they put out a trailer for Borderlands 3 where it had these URLs in it that looked like they were just a bunch of gibberish. As it turned out, they weren't gibberish. They were real Twitch channels. So this is all he does. He just runs a Borderlands YouTube channel. He's done it for I think he said he launched it in 2014 or 2015. And he's covered all the Borderlands stuff.
It's amazing that someone could remain that focused on Borderlands for 5 years.
It's insane. But you know what? He was good at it because he was good at digging stuff up about the franchise, and obviously fans of the franchise recognized it and were like, dang, this guy gets all the info first. We don't know how he's getting it, but somehow he's getting it. So, as it turns out, how he was getting this stuff was mistakes by Take-Two. So they put out that trailer with the URL in it that looked like it was a bunch of gibberish. It wasn't. He went to the Twitch channel and found an archived video of Borderlands 3 that had all this unannounced stuff in it. He watches the video. He then looks for related channels on Twitch, finds channels related to that channel on Twitch, and finds more stuff, and then just reports it. That's it.
Wow.
And Take-Two was too stupid. Its investigators were too stupid to figure out on their own that this guy had actually used completely legitimate investigative practices to uncover all this information. So, Take-Two, and this sucks.
I'm sure there was a meeting with whoever put that trailer together.
Probably. Take-Two, and this sucks, issued 7 copyright strikes to him. Discord, cut his channel. He went through all this crap, and no one cared. After they found out that he wasn't, doing anything illegal or sneaky, he still had the copyright strikes on YouTube. Take-Two will not go back and admit that it's screwed up. So this kid, it was his whole livelihood running his Borderlands channel on YouTube. They took his livelihood away. They took his Discord channel away from him, all for nothing.
Well,
how do you combat that?
You don't. I mean, don't buy Borderlands 3, I guess.
I mean, you could take him to court and you'd win, but
you have to have the money to do that.
You have to have the money to do it, and you're not going to get that money back either. It's
well, you would if you won, because you factor in legal costs as part of the settlement.
It's a huge risk, though.
It is, but if you can find a lawyer to take the case pro bono, that would work. I mean, there's probably some legal firm out there somewhere that would be oh, we can win this, I assure you.
Oh, you know what? I want to bring up the guy's name, too. I want to specifically mention him, because if any of you guys are Borderlands fans, go follow his channel and help him out. His name is Matt Supmato Summers, and I think his channel is SUPMATTO. So if any of you guys are Borderlands fans, this is a call to action for you to go support this guy, because he got shafted over nothing, doing. I mean, that's good journalism, what he did. He outsmarted the mainstream press. We all could have done this. We all could have seen that URL and been oh, we all did probably, and we're just oh, that's a junk URL. He didn't. He was dedicated enough to go and check it out, and it paid off initially, but now he's being punished for it. It's really disturbing to me that a journalist doing his job can just be sabotaged because a company has a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, the solution there for Take-Two is once you find out that's what happened, you take those videos down on your URLs and your whatever these Twitch things are. You find out who put those there and who put that URL in the trailer.
And you fire them.
And yeah, those people get punished, and you back off the kid.
And then you hire the kid.
Well, yeah, also that.
I mean, obviously, he loves your franchise and knows more about it than almost anyone. He's who you want as your community manager.
And that's the best how I became a community manager story you could ask for.
Absolutely. I'm aghast at this story. It's awful. It just shows how power and money can shut down the truth. And look, it's games, so it seems very flimsy and inconsequential, but this is what's happening in games. It's happening in all these other industries, too. It just shows you how power and money can shut down things that power and money don't want.
Well, it helps that, Take-Two owns Borderlands. Take-Two owns all the stuff he's reporting on. And they're going to see from a legal perspective, well, you have no right to, even if you found those things, we still own that information, so we're going to come at you for that. Which is not good public relations. But at the same time, these days it seems like stuff like that just doesn't really make the impact it once did. We're kind of immune to companies making horrible decisions and doing horrible things to people
and getting away with it.
Yeah. So I don't really see any recourse on this one for this kid. But best you can do, I guess, is go watch his stuff and help him how you can.
Well, I think what bothered me the most...
It doesn't seem like Take-Two or Twitch are going to do him any favors.
See, what bothers me the most about the whole thing is how YouTube and Discord reacted to it.
Was it YouTube?
Yeah,
his channel?
It was YouTube. So he got one of the copyright strikes wiped. He doesn't know why. Mm-hmm. And YouTube didn't explain whether it was because they deemed that it was a bullcrap strike in the first place, or if Take-Two rescinded it, but he still has all the others.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's no rhyme or reason to why YouTube does anything like that.
No, that's true. I just did a survey on YouTube, and I just lambasted YouTube.
Well, also even talk to people. I've talked to people who literally make their living on it, are very high level people whose names you would recognize.
Yeah.
And they're like, we have no idea. Like, we have no idea why the algorithm does this, or why this happens, or why this gets related to this, or, why I got a copyright strike on this, but I didn't get it on this. Like, I know someone who got a copyright strike because they hummed a Star Wars theme.
Wow.
Like, it still picked up the Star Wars theme on there, and
sings on key.
Got struck for like having that on there, and they're like, no, that was just something I sent, and like, it's crazy. Like, it's there's no human mind behind any of it.
Yeah, they asked the wrong person to answer their survey, let me tell you, man. I laid into them because, I've been dealing with this crap for so long, like, and they only gave you like 800 characters or whatever.
Yeah, we're a long way out from the Google's "Don't be evil" phase.
Oh, so. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what disappointed me. YouTube didn't surprise me. It disappointed me, but it didn't surprise me. Discord pissed me off.
That seems weird.
I'm like,
Discord
okay, you're the young startup that was built by people like us, and you're turning your back on us for
Take-Two?
Well, you know why? It's because they need to make money someday, and they want to make sure that when that time comes, that they have Take-Two on board, and they can generate revenue from Take-Two. Money ruins and runs everything.
Well, also because if Take-Two decides like they're going to go scorched earth, they shut down all the GTA stuff.
Right.
And like, if you can't have GTA on your platform as a topic, you're kind of screwed.
I mean, the truth be told is because it's their IP, they control everything. So they can't do anything about him sitting there and talking about the game. If he runs any footage of that game, then he opens himself up. If he just wants to sit there on camera or come here and record something, he's fine. They can't do anything legally. The fact that these companies acquiesce to Take-Two when clearly Take-Two is in the wrong here, that really gets me burning, man. That really bothers me. So, Discord, I had a lot. It's weird how brands build this loyalty.
That makes sense.
What?
Bunko in the chat says that Supmato's YouTube channel allegedly offered access to a private Discord channel that included further Borderlands 3 leaked information in exchange for a $5 membership. That's what got it shut down. It's the fact that he was trading the information for money.
I don't know. The story that I read doesn't mention any of that. Maybe that's come out in the last day. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the story right now. I've read it like 10 times. It's not mentioned in that story at all that he did that.
Well, I'm sure there's multiple things coming out about it now. But if that was happening, then that is a thing that would probably cause Discord to shut that down.
Yeah.
At least until they figured out what was happening.
So he was, with Discord specifically, he had opened up a private channel on Discord.
Yeah, like if you subscribe for like $5 or on Patreon, you get to come into my Discord, you get the Discord channel info, and we have more info on Borderlands 3 in there.
Interesting.
So that indeed would, But
that's still not illegal.
I believe it is, actually, because he doesn't own that information. It's an IP control thing. It would be a hard thing to prove in court, but it is something that they can go for. And all these companies like Discord, and they're all so hypersensitive. They're risk-averse, hypersensitive to it. Yeah, so... Yeah, that goes further to.
I really don't think there's anything wrong with that. If he has information, that the issue is how did he get the information? If he got the information in an illegal way, then absolutely selling that information illegal. If he got the information because he was doing a good job as a journalist or a sleuth, there's nothing illegal about selling that information.
But I'll bet
your information.
Right, but I'll bet you that Take-Two went to Discord and said this guy illicitly got this information, and
they could have been completely deceptive.
And Discord's reaction to that is going to be to instantly shut stuff down, because if Take-Two comes after Discord, Discord's not going to be able to fight that fight, because Discord is not the size of Take-Two.
Discord's pretty big though, man. They got a lot of funding now.
But you'd be surprised how fast that can disappear if you get in trouble with the people that make GTA.
It goes back to what I was saying. They want Take-Two's money. They want to work on marketing deals with Take-Two. They want to be the ones who host official chats for Take-Two's games.
This also goes some way towards the whole idea of like kind of how the people who make their living making videos or making Twitch streams about video games, especially specific brands of video games, like your livelihood is at the mercy of these companies.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they can always just come for you and decide to shut that all down.
Yeah, and the platforms will always side with them.
With them, yeah.
Always. It's a scary way to have to make a living if you think about it.
Or film YouTube. People that do film essays on YouTube. Anytime those studios could come crack down on you because Warner Brothers decided they didn't like you, made a whole video about how Suicide Squad is terrible.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter that you're right. It matters that it's their footage.
Yeah.
And you can, there's
That's how you have to.
And everyone puts everyone puts the things. It's editorial. It's editorial commentary. It's a transformative work because it's criticism. you can't, that counts as free speech, but it counts as free speech. It counts as transformative work and it's fair use. But if a major company decides to come at you about that, you have to prove it's fair use in court, and most people can't afford to do that. Yep. So it doesn't matter that you're right. All that matters is they're more powerful.
Right, which is going back to my original point, which is when you're powerful and you have money, you can pretty much do whatever the hell you want. Mm-hmm. And that's what's happened to this poor guy. So,
most of the time you're just not worth noticing. Like, individual people that do that are not worth noticing, and trying to do like a sweeping, like, we're going to shut down, like if Take-Two tried to shut down everyone who talks about Borderlands on the internet, that would be a big deal. But if you take out one person, it's going to be hard to kind of get that word out and make people care.
I mean, this guy did have big stuff. Like, I could see where Take-Two at first was like, wait a minute, how's he getting this stuff? Like, he knew about the 4 characters before they announced him. He knew about radiated weapons, like all this very specific stuff. So I could see where knee-jerk reaction is, oh my God, like, where'd he get this stuff?
Certainly my first, in their shoes, my first reaction would be like, he must know someone who's telling him this stuff. So yeah, you do want to investigate that. But then, like, from his perspective as well, like, I would guess he thought that all this was intentional. Because if the URL's in the video, it feels like one of those ARG, like, scavenger hunt things where, like, oh, well, I'm the only one who found it, so I get to talk about it. And I'm sure he thought that was the plan.
The really sad part about it...
Because why else would it be in official media, right?
You're right. You would think it was like some AR campaign.
Right.
Like they've done with Halo.
If I was in his position, that's absolutely what I would think. Like, oh, I'm the one who found this, so I better, like, hit this while I can, because other people are going to figure it out eventually, too.
And the sad part about it all is by the end of the whole thing, he had folded. He's like, I feel bad that I did that. Like, they had convinced him that he was in the wrong. Like, it's just... It sucks. It's crazy, but, he's like a 20... He loves Borderlands. He loves Gearbox. He loves Take-Two. So when they come to him and they're like, you've been naughty. We don't like you. He's like, oh my God, they don't like me. I love them. Like, it just... The whole thing is just crap. So anyway,
it's time for Randy Pitchford to step in.
Yeah, that's when it gets really crap. So again, go support Matto Summers on YouTube if you're into Borderlands. Obviously, he's a pretty good sleuth and he's digging up stuff, and I hope he continues to do it. And if he's afraid to do it with Take-Two, he should switch to somebody else.
Yeah, find another game, I guess.
Find a poorer publisher, maybe. I don't know. But mad props to you, man. I have a lot of respect for what you did. You did a really great job. I wish you had kind of held your ground a little more.
It's hard to hold your ground when you're...
It is.
You got PIs in your face, like, throwing, like, legal bullshit at you.
Jargon at you that you don't understand. Yeah. You don't have a lawyer, and you probably
you can't afford to fight that, and you just,
you're going to end up with a public defender, and I feel bad for the guy, but I'm proud of the work.
I mean, that's why they use those tactics, because it works.
Yep.
Most people don't know they have those.
That's all they had to do.
Yeah.
They had to pay a couple lackeys to go down in suits and show up at his door.
They're not police. They don't have a warrant. He doesn't have to talk to them at all.
Yep.
Don't even have to open the door.
Yep. All right, so it's time to move on to our next topic. We had a crazy discussion about guns and video games on today's High Score this past week. You should definitely go check it out. It's every Saturday.
Didn't even get to the other topics, I heard.
I'm not real. I had like 7 topics ready, and we got to 2. Like, I had to call the guns and games part at a certain point. The calls just kept coming, but I was like, we got to stop. Like, it was like an hour and a half conversation. But today's High Score is live right here on twitch.tv/SiftedGames on Saturdays at 2 p.m. Pacific. This past episode, we talked about games and guns. The discussion was great. We had people on both sides. Everyone was very respectful. The conversation is awesome. I highly recommend going and checking out the archive. But we're not going to talk about that again here on GameFace because we already did that on today's High Score. But there is kind of a splinter part of it that we want to discuss, and that is the fact that ESPN, after the mass shootings, decided to pull from air an eSports competition for Apex Legends. And I wanted to talk with you about, because I'll be honest with you, I'm really torn on this, on whether it was the right call or not.
First off, I'm a little shocked that Apex Legends was going to be on ESPN, too.
Well, I mean, esports are going like everywhere.
Yeah, I just hadn't heard anything about Apex Legends in a while.
But as someone who also worked in television for a long time, I wanted to talk this out with you because we're in the position where we've been on both sides of this. And as someone who is in that position, I really had problems figuring out what I would have done if I was the person who had to make this call. So what would you have done, Matt, if you were put in the position of, do we have this tournament or do we pull it off the air?
I mean, honestly, if someone didn't bring that issue to me, I would never connect real-life mass shooting gun violence with an Apex Legends tournament. Like, Apex Legends is too fantastical for me to make that connection myself. I mean,
they are humans shooting other humans.
Right, but like...
And look, we know, obviously, our stance
like, would you not run Die Hard?
Right. I mean, that's... I mean, we understand that.
Right.
But still, you can't... When you're in that position, you can't just do what you know is right. You have to do what's going to be viewed as correct by the largest amount of people.
Right. But the thing, like, with this is, like, I feel like more people now know that an Apex Legends tournament was going to air on ESPN2 than would have known if it had aired.
That's true.
You know, like,
yeah.
I have a very hard time seeing anyone
I'm not crying.
Complaining about it?
I'm not crying for the publisher here. Like,
right. But I have a hard time seeing anyone having, like, complained about it if they did run it. Like, if you're going to cancel anything with, like, shooting in it, esports-wise, every time a shooting happens, like, you're never going to air any esports things.
Yeah, at the rate things are going right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously these shootings sparked more concern than average for whatever reason.
Because there was 2 in one day.
2 in one day. I mean, that's happened before, too.
But
I mean,
not of this magnitude.
Yeah, it's like, I understand why they did it. I understand why that's a reaction you have to, like, you know, gun violence. Maybe you don't want to, like, show gun violence as kind of a sport sort of thing. Like, I would ask if they canceled, like, any, like, biathlons, but I figure that's not happening in August.
Well, first of all, they're not showing biathlons on ESPN, which is pretty impressive when you think about it. They won't show a biathlon, but they'll show esports.
Yeah, well, biathlons aren't throwing money at them.
Yeah, that's true.
If you see esports in one of these things, because they paid to put them on.
Yeah. Another reason why...
It's why they go away so quickly.
It's also the other reason why esports is just struggling to make money. It's because to get on air, you have to spend gobs of cash.
Yeah, spend money that then you never see again.
Yep.
So I feel like because of that, the nature of that, like, maybe part of this was EA's choice, not just ESPN's choice. Also, ESPN is owned by Disney, and I know firsthand that when something like this happens, Disney shuts down all their PR and all their stuff relating to anything like that. I did a Star Wars show once with them, and the day before it aired was the Paris attacks, and that means that they just go dark on promotion and anything, especially involving something. I mean, Star Wars, wars in the title, is just a lot of shooting. You know, it's a lot of violence in it, and so, like, they just didn't promote it, and no one saw it. They didn't pull it, but they also didn't push it. In the case of this, like I get it. I probably wouldn't pull it, but then I have a higher, like, sense of, like, separating kind of, you know, the real world stuff from the fantasy stuff. Like, if it was like a Call of Duty tournament, I might feel differently, or like a Counter-Strike tournament, like, where it was, like, really just more like a Rainbow Six thing. It was more like a real life weapons and kind of situation thing. But this, where people are just flying through the air with jetpacks and shooting poison magic powers at each other, so it's a borderline case to me.
I'm having problems excuse me, rectifying going either direction with my prior stances on things. So we showed the chart on here that just makes it blatantly obvious that games have nothing to do with mass shootings. And so that's what I believe, that they have no impact on it whatsoever. It's the same line. You know, everyone in the world's playing video games. We're the only one who has a problem with mass shootings. So if you believe that, and I do, that, you know, mass shootings are more of a problem with gun culture in our society and mental health than it is video games, then it's hard for me to pull that, no matter what is being shot in those games. Because to pull it is you saying, well, maybe this is desensitizing people to violence, or maybe this is glorifying.
I don't think it necessarily is that. Like, if you're like remember when 9/11 happened and Sega canceled Propeller Arena because you could ram into it was a plane multiplayer shooter, and you could ram into buildings and the buildings would fall over, and, like, that was, like, sort of part of the obstacle of the gameplay, was if you hit a building you would, like, die, but, like, then the building would maybe collapse, and that would not be an obstacle to other players.
Right.
It was just like a dynamic thing. But they pulled it. They decided to cancel it after 9/11 because, duh.
Yeah.
But, like, they didn't cancel it because they were afraid people would fly more planes into buildings. They cancel it because they didn't want to remind people who were upset about that incident about it while they're trying to watch something that was supposed to be entertainment or play something that was supposed to be entertainment. So from the angle that like we don't want to show like a gun battle competition while this situation and this violence is fresh in people's minds, like that is probably the thinking they're going with, I would think, which I understand. Like I mean, for me, the solution to that would just don't watch the show, but like I understand why you don't want the bad press of airing it anyway, because then you could be accused of being callous about it. Like,
see, I viewed it with them.
Like, I don't think it's related to the video game violence causes real violence thing. I don't think ESPN was afraid they were going to inspire another shooting.
No. That's not what I was getting at. What I was getting at is they are supporting the people who believe that. Like, so you have. I'm guessing, like most people, probably people were split 50-50 on whether they should air this or not. I was right down the middle. It was hard, but. To me, pulling it is you saying to the people who say video games are causing this stuff, you may be right.
I don't see that. I mean, I definitely see how you.
Thus, the lower third.
I definitely see how you could interpret it that way, but I don't think that's why they did it or what they're saying. I think what they're saying is this subject matter is maybe not appropriate right now because of what's on everyone's minds related to that. And
but did HBO go and pull all the movies and TV shows with guns in them? Did all the networks go and pull all that stuff?
No,
I mean, you're basically saying like video games are different. They actually may have something to do with
video games are different because there's no other content like that on ESPN. There's no other gun content on ESPN. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Like that's the X factor here, I think, is that ESPN doesn't normally air violence. I mean, other than sports. I mean, obviously.
Other than NFL football,
obviously, is violent, but like, you know.
Yeah, they don't actually show hockey, so you have to worry about that one. But
I mean, if there was if we were talking about like Mutant League, where you can like grab the starter pistol and cause some damage that way, then maybe it would be different. But like, this is unusual content for them. Would be, I think, part of the problem is like, if you're HBO and you're airing R-rated like violent like Death Wish movies all the time, like that's different. It's just sort of what people expect to see on there. But I can see why ESPN would say like, well, people don't expect to turn on ESPN and see people shooting each other, and that could be an issue.
Well, it's fake people. It's not real people.
Yeah, but I understand where they're coming. I mean, especially because like people that expect to tune into what they're tuning into on ESPN, even when it was like fighting games and stuff, when they'd air Evo, like there would be crazy like violent responses on Twitter about what the fuck am I watching? Why is this bullshit? Yeah. And then like some of them over the course of an hour, like this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I kind of like this.
Like it won some people over the course of the time. After that, they complained for like 30 minutes. They're like, wow, that was a good match. Yeah. You're like, oh, we got you. We got you.
Starting to figure it out.
But I don't necessarily agree with it, but I can see if you're an executive or a VP of programming for ESPN and your ass is on the line in that meeting and you're trying to make that decision and you're thinking about the reaction someone would have if they're expecting to tune in to see like basketball and they see this and they've just been thinking about shootings for a whole week and then this is what's there and then they freak out. Like,
would you have pulled it?
I mean, I would have probably liked to have seen more data. I'm sure they have internal data on some stuff that maybe makes more sense. But like my instinct would not have been to pull it. But I could have allowed myself to be convinced to pull it, depending on who else was arguing for it in the room.
Like your boss arguing to pull it,
or just other people with like making that same point. Like if like I'd be fine taking a vote. Who thinks we should just err on the side of caution and not air the shooting thing. Who thinks because like here's the thing,
it's a tough call. Like I'm usually very decisive on things. I mean, I still don't know what I would have done.
Here's the thing, I don't think it's that tough of a call. Like because I would lean towards airing it just because I like video games and understand video games and like eSports stuff. Not that I watch a lot of it, but I understand it. I don't see it as a danger or a harm. If I tuned into ESPN and saw that people shooting each other in a video game, I would not think like, oh my god, what's this doing? I would just be like, oh, they're airing eSports. Okay. But like I could be compelled by other voices in the room to say like we should do this. In part because if you don't air it, what do you lose? Nothing.
Money.
Very little. I mean, in comparison,
but it depends on how much EA gave them.
Yeah, but like probably not as much as say almost anything else they air.
Well, if you lose one advertiser over it, it's not worth it.
But I don't think you are.
And you probably would. Well, if you ran the esports tournament, I bet you would lose some advertisers.
That could be, yeah. That's what
there would be some.
See, I thought you meant lose an advertiser
on social media that would.
I thought you meant.
Campaign.
I thought you meant lose an advertiser because you didn't air it.
No.
And I don't think anyone would do it. You just run their ads on whatever else you air.
I'm saying if you ran it,
you might lose. That's what I'm saying is like.
In that case, it's not worth it.
That's what I mean is like I could be compelled to pull it in the sense that like the downside of the worst case scenario if you air it is far worse than the worst case scenario if you don't air it. Like, if you, like what do you lose if you don't air it? Like EA's maybe a little upset with you, but they certainly can't say that publicly because then they look like the asshole for wanting to air.
They can't do anything about it. Yeah,
and it's not like EA. You have the cards because you're ESPN. Like EA's going to come back to you again to air this some other time or the next one or whatever.
Or they want to work with you on Madden or whatever.
So what do you lose if you do that? You don't air this one thing. Maybe this one deal doesn't go through, but it's basically peanuts compared to what ESPN makes on its other, the big major sports. Whereas if you do air it, the worst case scenario is everybody freaks out and somebody boycotts your channel and gun control people lobby against you now and you're the enemy.
The whole concept of
it would be ridiculous if that happened, but like as a corporate entity, you have to take that into account.
For sure.
And do the safest thing because it's not your money, it's the shareholders.
It's crazy though to think about it. I mean, okay, we're going to shut this down on ESPN. Meanwhile, there's Apex Legends played on Twitch all over the place, all over YouTube. It's like, but no, just us. We're not gonna let people watch it on our outlet. It's so weird.
I don't think it's weird at all. I think it's because that content is not normal ESPN content.
Yeah.
Twitch, that's exactly what you expect to see on Twitch. Hell, the weird thing on Twitch is when you go to Twitch and you see Bob Ross.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Happy little trees are the weird part on Twitch.
Yeah.
Or just talk shows. But like, I think it's part of it's probably ESPN's unfamiliarity with the content and just not being sure how people would react to it. That's all there is to it. In their position, I would probably, as someone who understands the content better, I would probably be like, just go for it, just do it. But that might be a reckless thing considering, like what the absolute worst case scenario could be, however unlikely. In that scenario with that much money at stake and with shareholders there to keep happy, you have to err on the side of caution sometimes. So
I mean, I would pull it. I'll be honest with you. I think it's the wrong decision for a billion reasons, but if that were my job at ESPN, I would pull it because
I think it's the smart thing to do from a corporate standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, there's no
upside.
Yeah, to running it. There's none.
I mean, Jesus,
you're going to run this eSports tournament.
Airing this stuff is basically a favor to the game companies.
They pay for it.
They pay for it, but they don't pay a lot. I mean, it's not like they're paying NFL money or something.
I mean, you'd be shocked though at how low the ratings are on like ESPN and ESPN2.
Oh, I'm sure ESPN2. I mean, I watched the Ocho this week.
Yeah, that's their best week of the year. The Ocho stuff. If I were in that job at ESPN, I would have pulled the tournament because there's literally like zero downside to pulling it from a business perspective. There just isn't. That show's probably going to do a 0.1. It's going to have maybe 100,000 people watching it if you're lucky. It's like morally, I would have a problem with doing it, but if I wanted to keep my job, I would pull the tournament.
Yeah, morally doesn't matter when you're trying to stay employed.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, to a certain level. I mean, you probably wouldn't like kill a dog to stay employed, but to just pull the shooter tournament for like the sake of playing it safe, big deal.
Yeah.
I guess
the cost benefit analysis doesn't work out.
Is it still going to be on Twitch or something?
I'm sure it was.
I'm sure there's another way to see it.
It's just so weird that you're so worried about protecting people from seeing something that they go to any other channel, they're going to see it. Mm-hmm. That just is weird.
I think it probably, if I would guess that the meeting about it came down to like, what is the ESPN
We're a sports
brand?
network.
We're a sports network. We're not a shooter network.
Yeah.
We aren't NRA TV, and they went out of business anyway.
And it makes me wonder, too, now, if networks like ESPN and all the other major networks that are working on esports now are going to be like, you know what? This whole thing just really isn't worth it.
It's possible. I mean, I would have to see more things pulled before I start to see this as a trend.
Yeah.
Because I think this is mainly just due to proximity. It's less than a week.
Right.
But we'll see. I mean,
so what is the moratorium? Like, when is it okay now for ESPN to start putting esports back on?
I mean, that comes down to when is it okay?
When
is it okay to make it political?
Right. I mean, that's kind of the point, though.
There's never going to be a time where like enough space happens between shootings where you can just say, "Oh, now it's all right."
That's what I'm saying.
Like
when you pull the tournament, you're kind of opening Pandora's box because now all of a sudden it's like, well, when is it going to be okay? Wait, so you're saying all the lives that were lost in those two shootings were worth 8 days? So 8 divided by the people killed, that creates our quotient where we, like, it's insane to think about when you really start, like, debating.
Well, I mean,
like,
it would be less of a question if esports was a profitable venture.
Yeah.
Like, because
that really is the crux of it.
You hit a point where, like, the downside is just not worth the little bit of money or exposure you get.
Yep.
So, it could have an impact, at least for violent, like, shooting-related stuff. I mean, obviously... I wouldn't be. Overwatch League probably wouldn't be that as affected by it because it's much more fantasy driven.
So what if it was Overwatch League? Would you pull that, or would you?
I probably wouldn't. It's just so clearly not real. But like I think part of the issue is like if you look at Apex Legends, while I don't think of it as a very realistic shooter, watching the footage,
they're humans.
Like they're not just humans, but like the guns that are sitting in front of the camera do look pretty real.
Yeah, they look like legit guns. Yeah,
it's not like Overwatch where you have a pretty good chance of like,
or it's just a hand
shooting balls, or like a staff shooting lasers, or like a mech shooting
or a troll with a big turret.
Yeah, I guess you're less likely to see a random clip of Overwatch that reminds you of real life. Whereas, like, I think I had forgotten kind of what Apex Legends looks like on a moment-to-moment basis in terms of how real weapons look like. So, yeah, I can see that.
Okay. All right, let's move on to our last topic of this week's episode. We're going to talk, we kind of hinted at it earlier, Matt did. I don't think he even realized that he was foreshadowing a later topic. We're going to talk about Microsoft and how it is approaching its first-party, supposedly exclusive games. So this week, I want to make sure I get his name right. Matt Booty. How did I forget that name?
I don't know.
Matt Booty, the VP of Xbox Game Studios. So basically, he's the guy right underneath Phil Spencer. Mm-hmm. He's basically running all the first-party studios along with Phil. He said in an interview that once Double Fine's game comes out, Psychonauts 2, it is going multiplayer. It's a multi-platform game. They're keeping it multi-platform. He said that once Psychonauts 2 comes out, they would not be averse to allowing Double Fine's games to remain multi-platform.
Mm-hmm. Unusual, but
very unusual,
but not entirely out of character for the trajectory Microsoft has been on the last several years. Like, I feel like they're way more interested in getting you into their ecosystem than getting you onto their hardware.
Yeah, it is. It's just like they're flying in the face of convention right now. I mean, I think it's just an accepted truth that you use first-party games, so people buy your hardware, so people buy more games, and you make all that money off of licensing fees. But Microsoft doesn't seem to be concerned about generating a lot of money off of that.
They're more interested in you playing their games.
I think they're more interested in you just signing up for Xbox Live.
Yeah.
That seems to be what has become the crux of Microsoft's business. Somebody asked Pactor in his later...
I mean, if you can get Xbox Live on all the major platforms except PlayStation, like, that's a pretty, if the rumors about Switch are true, and like you've got it on PC, you've got it on Xbox, like, if you can get them into your ecosystem, who cares what they're playing it on?
If you can get someone who owns a Nintendo Switch to pay you $60 a year to use your service, I mean,
like a Game Pass thing,
or like Xbox Live.
I don't think you're gonna get that, but
I don't know.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
So you think just Xbox Live's just gonna be on Switch for movies?
I think it would be there for individual purchases, and I think there would be a Game Pass subscription for it. That's what they'd be pushing, I think, is game, and maybe probably the Xbox Live features would be included with that. But I think I think the move to mush Xbox Live and Xbox Game Pass together that they did this E3 to the Ultimate Pass or whatever, I think that is what they're going to be pushing moving forward as the standard on other platforms. Certainly on the Switch. Because that's what they're going to push. It's like, look, you get this instant library you can download.
Isn't it weird to have Xbox Live on a platform and not be allowed to use it? And instead, you're forced to use this crappy service that Nintendo has.
Yeah, but I mean, why would you do that? Like having someone. The only reason you get someone to pay to play online is by holding that sort of thing hostage as part of the platform.
Yeah.
Certainly, how Nintendo pulled it off, and certainly how Xbox did it in the original, and that's just become standard now. So I think like, okay, you're already paying $20 a year for whatever crappy thing Nintendo's offering you. I don't see how Nintendo allows you to offer a better service on their same platform with your, like, that doesn't make any sense. Why
to me,
Nintendo
that's
would allow
exactly why Nintendo should allow it, because
Well,
it's a better service.
To replace it, you mean?
Yeah.
Like, that would be out of character for them. But I mean,
I mean, there's all kinds of out of character stuff happening right now in the industry.
If they don't want to deal with it anymore, I guess I could see that. I just think the idea with Xbox Live is more like, they don't even call it Xbox Live. They're gonna call it Xbox.
Right.
It's called Xbox whatever. And I think Game Pass is going to be the big push if they can get whatever is on there to work. I mean, I don't know. Like, to me, Game Pass is their big play. Getting people to pay for online is sort of old and busted.
I don't know about busted. Xbox Live's still really good.
Oh, it still does, but like, you know, I don't know if you can really worm into the Switch that way. I
wish they would.
Yeah, but
how awesome would it be also if you were an Xbox owner and you already had Xbox Live on Xbox, and somehow you could get a discount for online on Switch if you're already a member on Xbox?
Maybe. I mean, I have a feeling that if they did that, it would still cost more than what I'm already paying for Switch.
And look, I'm not saying that they're going to call it Xbox Live. It's not like you're going to be on your Switch and they're going to be like, here's Xbox Live, pay for it. There's going to be some other name for it. It's going to be painted a different color, but it's going to be the same thing underneath.
I think there will still be Xbox branding on it.
You think it will?
Because otherwise, what's the point?
I just think it's weird if you're Nintendo.
It'll be presented by Xbox.
Because Nintendo does still care about that old model. It does still care about first-party games that get people to buy the hardware so that people
which is why I have a hard time believing that they would give up on their own online service and just let Microsoft do it.
I think they absolutely would, provided they don't have to say this is Xbox Live.
Well, I don't think Microsoft would do it if it doesn't promote Xbox somehow.
So you work out some kind of a deal. Nintendo Online is actually Xbox Live now, but it's still called Nintendo Online. Suddenly you have all these awesome features that you wanted on Nintendo Switch. It's still called Nintendo Online, but on the side, there's this brand new marketplace. It's still not even called Xbox Game Pass. It's just called, like, Nintendo Game Pass. But Microsoft is the one making all the revenue off of that. I think that could work.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think
you think it's more likely that Nintendo will have something called Xbox on its platform.
I think it will be very minorly branded that way, but it would be something like powered by Xbox or something. In the same way, the same way like remember Dreamcast was powered by Windows CE.
Yeah.
It'd be something like that. Because there's no reason to go in that hard for Microsoft without promoting Microsoft somehow.
I mean, it's just you're making all the money off of the games from...
Doesn't matter. Their whole focus right now seems to be getting people into the Xbox ecosystem and letting people know that Xbox is not just that piece of hardware you buy.
But this is a case where you are getting them into the ecosystem. You're just not telling them they're in the ecosystem.
Yeah, which doesn't do your ecosystem any good.
It does. They're paying the money into it. It does.
But it doesn't do you any good to keep you into the wider ecosystem and get them to transition into the Xbox world more.
But you can't count on doing that if you're going to run
There is no way, period, in hell that happens on the Switch and it does not have a Microsoft branding on it somewhere.
No, Microsoft is fine. It's Xbox that's the problem. Yeah. I think Nintendo would be okay if it's called Microsoft Cloud Gaming whatever. Mm-hmm. It's Xbox because, like I said, Nintendo does still care about that crap.
But I don't think Nintendo cares about Xbox. I mean, they repeatedly said that that's not their competition. They said that about Sony and Microsoft.
But that's not true.
I mean, it is true. Maybe they don't see it that way, but it is true. They don't compete with those systems. They're not the same thing.
I think they do.
They don't. I
think gamers only have so much money, and they're going to buy the console that they want the most.
Yeah, well,
then maybe if you're lucky, you buy a second one.
Yeah, well, so far that second one has been Xbox, so I don't think Nintendo's too worried about that. And they've already got the working agreement where they've got Banjo-Kazooie back in Smash Brothers. Like, they're copacetic enough that and Banjo-Kazooie is an Xbox character now. I mean, you can definitely...
I mean, the last game was for an Xbox platform, but he's absolutely not an Xbox character.
Of course he is. No. He's all over the place.
Nobody looks at Banjo and Kazooie and says Microsoft first. They say N64 first. Nintendo.
I think of it as Xbox because every time I played a Banjo game in the last however many years, it's been on the Xbox.
See,
including the old ones.
Not for me. I've only ever played one Banjo game on Xbox, and it was a piece of crap. So to me, it absolutely is a Nintendo franchise.
Well,
I think Microsoft,
not the reality of it.
But I think Microsoft agrees. I mean, that's why they put those characters in Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
Because
we let you use that character, so you're going to let us put our fucking X logo on the online service.
And I wouldn't be surprised either if I was going to say when, but really if they ever make another Banjo, that it comes out like what they're doing with Double Fine, if it comes out on Switch.
I wouldn't be surprised if when they're talking about Double Fine being multi-platform, they're talking about Switch versions.
Oh, I'm sure. Yep, absolutely. I would agree with that as well. And I think Microsoft would be more likely to let its games go to Switch because it knows because
they know they're not in competition with each other.
I think more importantly, it knows that it's going to be an inferior version on Switch. Whereas with PlayStation, they don't know that.
Yeah,
like,
but it
could
doesn't
actually
matter.
look better running on PlayStation. Whereas they know it's not going to look as good
moving
on
into
Switch.
the new systems, that's an X factor.
Yeah.
But I mean, Switch looking better apparently doesn't matter to Switch customers.
Yeah, I mean,
judging by the sales numbers.
I mean, Nintendo customers. Let's be honest. I mean, it's been this way for a while. If you're a Nintendo fan, I mean,
but this is the first time that like the multi-platform stuff has sold huge on a Nintendo system in a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
Regardless of how inferior it is, even Youngblood that happened. I mean, Youngblood looked worse than any other platform it was on, ran worse than any other platform it was on, and wasn't even in the box. Still sold.
Yeah.
So I think that Nintendo and Microsoft, especially since they've clearly been talking to each other if this Manjo thing was going to happen, I think it'd be pretty easy to come to an agreement of like, we are not in competition with one another. We are aiming for different markets. And I still believe that Microsoft is pulling away from the hardware idea. Like if Microsoft could get to the point where Xbox was just an ecosystem, a software ecosystem that you know, like a Steam kind of thing, they would absolutely do that.
Oh, I agree with you.
Cross-platforms,
I agree with you 1,000%.
they would do that. And so
I think Nintendo's the only one that's
Nintendo's the only one still married to the hardware
loop.
thing, for sure.
For sure.
I mean, Sony's going to keep doing it because they don't have any other options.
They have to, yeah.
But they do have options internally. I mean, Pactor always talks about building it into TVs and stuff like that. I feel like that is probably not the way you move forward with like a PlayStation 6 because
I don't know about that.
I ain't buying a new TV every time I need a new system. I mean, that's way more than a games console.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
When it's brand new, you're talking about a $4,000 television.
Yeah, but most people do
buy a
buy
new system.
TVs like once every 7-8 years, something like that.
But not full price and not new ones. Like if you're going to release the PlayStation 6 as part of a TV hardware thing, you're talking about a $5,000, $4,000 TV, and I'm not going to buy that every 5 years.
Well, it depends on how nice the TV is. Remember, Sony made those TVs that were for the PlayStation 3, those 3D TVs.
The 3D ones, yeah.
And they made them like dirt cheap because they knew if they tried to make an expensive TV for that, it wasn't going to work.
Right, but I don't want to play it on that stupid little TV. I want to play on my 65-inch 4K or by then 8K, probably.
You do, but not necessarily everybody
else.
Well,
then what do I do?
Well, they also make the crazy $5,000 version for you.
But I don't want that. I want to pay $500 and get a console.
Those days are going away, Matt.
I don't think they are.
I think they are.
I mean, people keep saying it. It's been saying for 2 generations. It hasn't happened. I'll believe it when I see it.
No, they haven't been saying it for 2 generations.
Of course they have.
That's like the last 18 months.
People were saying that consoles are dead when the launch of this new generation. They're saying like PlayStation 4's got no chance. Like it's it's all gonna look at how people are reacting to the Xbox thing.
That's different. They were saying that they just thought the console market was dead. They weren't saying that it was going to be replaced with this other way to do it.
Well, that's not a viable other way to do it, considering the cost of what it's going to be.
For you, it's not.
For anyone, no one wants to spend $5,000 for a new console. Like that's not going to happen.
But you don't have to. Like you buy a cheaper TV with it built in, and it's not going to.
People have TVs. They have TVs they like. They don't want to replace it with a tiny TV.
They're not going to be just built into TVs either. They'll be built into pretty much everything. I mean, you can fight against the future all you want, but it's going to happen.
I need to see evidence of that being the future before I fight against. Because right now it just sounds like nonsense.
Because you want it to be nonsense.
No, because it is nonsense right now. I'll believe it when I see it. Same thing with the Stadia thing. I'll believe it when it works.
Yeah, I think Stadia is going to work.
I mean, it functions, I'm sure, but in terms of like providing some kind of service that someone outside of China cares about, because I think that's where it's aiming for, is the market where you can. Because why haven't they gone into China? Why hasn't all the console manufacturers, all the big publishers gone into China? It's hard to penetrate that market, especially with hardware. It's also very hard to get in there without bootlegging and piracy being a problem.
Theft, yeah.
And now, no hardware, just a service you pay for. Use any controller you already own, any TV screen. Boom, you've got a 200 million person market open to you for the first time, and you're charging full price for the games. Yeah. All the third-party publishers are on board. And you don't have to give them anything.
I mean, you got to realize that proposition works everywhere, not just China.
No, I think it works in China in part because their infrastructure is better.
But
that proposition is not going to work as well in a market like North America or Europe, where we are used to getting something for our money. Like the fact that you pay $60 for the new Assassin's Creed, but if Stadia shuts down, you lose that forever. non-starter.
I'm with you 100%, bro. But I'm telling you, these kids and the millennials do not give a crap about.
They give a fuck about whether their game goes away if the service shuts down. I
don't even know if they care about that all that much.
Yes,
man.
they do.
Like they just like everything. Like
well, they don't throw their money away like that. They can't. They don't have the money to throw away.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to do that if they don't get anything in return. They're already suspect of the digital world, and you can re-download that stuff anytime.
My point is that they're not worried about collecting crap. Like
I'm not talking about collecting crap. I'm talking about getting something concrete for your money. I'm not collecting crap when I buy something digitally, but I can always download. If Steam went away tomorrow, I could, not because my internet connection is not fast enough to download like that many games, but I could download and install every game I had on Steam, obviously. And it would all work after Steam shut down. Not true of Stadia. That's their weakness in the West.
They can fix that pretty easily, though.
Well, they'd have to sell you hardware for that, and then that defeats the purpose of Stadia.
Yeah. I don't know. They could just give you the PC version of the game.
Yeah, but then you have to have a PC.
You still have the code technically, though.
Yeah, but that's a thing Google have to invent. And why would Google do that unless they're going to shut down? I guess it's something they could do.
I would also argue that the millennials and the young kids trust Google. Whether they should or not, I don't know.
I would have to see some hard data on that because that is not my experience at all.
Huh.
The younger kids do not trust those companies at all. They trust the people on the YouTube channel they're watching. They do not trust YouTube.
Interesting. And we should also clear up a couple
in part
things.
Because the people who do all those YouTube channels constantly talk about how much it sucks to work on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm part of that.
YouTube is very much painted by the enemy as the enemy by YouTubers fairly often. So I think skepticism towards YouTube and Google is pretty widespread, no matter who you are, if you have any contact with those companies at all.
I hate YouTube. We should clear up a couple things before we go. So, Matt Booty, I love that name. He did clarify that stuff like Halo, Forza, Sea of Thieves, that stuff is not up for consideration to be released on other platforms. Mm-hmm. So the big marquee stuff, and I think the way he phrased it was stuff that we can build around and increase the value of ourselves with our existing technologies would never be considered for that. But he said he felt like games that they could end up selling more if they put them on other platforms, and they're just kind of these standalone things that they can't do much for with their platform. Those would be the products that he would consider allowing onto other platforms.
Right.
So you're not going to see Halo running on Switch. You're not going to see Gears running on Switch.
But also that caveat makes it sound even more like something that would work on Switch.
Yeah. No, you're right. Those are the exact games that would work on Switch in most cases. So just an interesting discussion.
Not that Switch couldn't use Halo.
No, for sure, yeah. It does need good shooter. Well, no, Bethesda's been doing a pretty good job
It's got
with those.
Wolfenstein and Doom, I guess. But.
Yeah. That's pretty good for a Nintendo platform.
Yeah.
But I think the whole landscape of first-party, exclusive, all that stuff's starting to get blurry. A Nintendo, I think, is always going to protect.
Unless you're Sony.
Yeah, I guess.
And even then, Death Stranding on PC, maybe.
Yep, exactly. Even Sony, that was what I was talking about when you foreshadowed it earlier. You kind of mentioned, when we were talking about that game going to PC. Like, even Sony now is starting to be like, okay, maybe it's better to just sell more copies of a game. Instead of holding, like you said, holding a product hostage, forcing people to come to our platform and spend $400 or $500 just to play it. Maybe we should be happy that we're going to make $20 or $30 off of that copy.
I still don't think it makes that much sense for Sony to do something like that because Microsoft, in Microsoft's case, they have that that Xbox ecosystem that crosses platforms, but like Sony doesn't really have anything like that. So kind of putting Death Stranding on PC just sort of kind of dilutes what they have more than builds another strategy, whereas with Xbox spreading things around makes me feel like they're building that strategy in addition to their hardware, whereas right now Sony feels like the only thing they have is their hardware and their exclusives.
Well, don't forget that they've actually started game stream. They didn't start it, but they bought the two startups that started game streaming in the first place. So they do have another outlet, but you're right, not as many as Microsoft. But
also, they would would really need to improve PlayStation Now to be something on. Even on par with Stadia. Like the one thing I know of the people I know who are working with Stadia right now, the thing they've said is that the encoding is astounding.
Yeah, that's.
In the sense that, like, when
it has to be,
and like when you play PlayStation Now and something, and you have a stutter or something, you have a kind of a free, it feels like a streaming freeze, right?
Yeah.
And apparently on Stadia, it feels more like when you're playing a PC game and the graphics card chugs a little bit. It feels like a more natural problem, but you don't have to stop playing. It's not like it freezes and like everything mosaics and everything. It's more like it chugs a little bit, which is a thing that PC players are totally used to. So I mean, it's like, yeah, the company that did YouTube's encoding algorithm did a pretty good encoding algorithm. I mean, they're pretty good at that when you think about it. Like, that makes sense.
Well, it's like a while back I was talking about that show on HBO, Silicon Valley. And I was like, you know what? That company, that startup, that fake startup that is on that show actually could become like the biggest company in the world if it really had a compression routine that was that good. Because it's a brilliant idea. If you can really compress stuff more than anyone else, you get filthy rich.
Yeah, so like magic is usually a good business idea.
Yeah, it is true. So it is kind of interesting that now we're kind of seeing like where a company like Pied Piper could be the biggest thing ever, because it's all about being able to compress that data down and being able to spit it out as quickly as possible. And just one last point before we move on, and we do have to move on because we're running out of time. I also feel like if you do the math and you're Sony and you're like, okay, so we have The Last of Us Part 2, or we have Death Stranding coming out. And we can hold it hostage, and we can make people buy a PlayStation 4 to play this, and then eventually maybe they wait and buy a PlayStation 5. What profit margin are we making on that hardware at that point? We're making probably, maybe best case scenario, $50 on each unit, maybe something like that. And then you say, okay, well, if we sell this game to this person, we make $30 on this game because it's first party and we control it all. It's not that bad of a proposition to allow it to happen.
Well, also, I mean, I know Kojima is sort of an idolized developer in the hardcore circles, but like his games don't sell that great.
Yeah.
I mean, Metal Gear Solid 5 sold 6 million last I saw, but that's
I think it ended up getting near 10.
That's across a lot of platforms.
Right. Yeah. It is.
That is not, and I think the record before that was 6 million for MGS4. And that is not a God of War. That is not a Spider-Man.
We've said it a million times. There's a reason Konami let him go.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I know there's like rumors now of like Sony buying the Metal Gear property. And it's like there's no way that would. I mean, they can make their own IP, and even one as lackluster as Days Gone is crawling up to the 5 million mark right now.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to go through the hoops of buying a multi-million-dollar, basically old IP from Konami, who probably wouldn't sell it anyway.
It should.
They don't want to. They want to make their own stuff.
I know, but it should.
Those pachinko games they're making more money now than they ever have as a company.
I know.
They made the right decision.
I know nobody out there.
Not for us. I mean, we
Yeah.
get screwed because we don't get to play Castlevania or Suikoden or Metal Gear anymore. But
as a company,
if
you're a
that was a smart
shareholder,
move.
it was the right call. So, all right.
So I don't know. Like the Death Stranding thing, we'll see. I mean, I would assume we'll find out this week.
Yep, should be coming up soon. All right, it's time for our trailer of the week. And there were several good trailers this week, but this one I chose for you, my friend. I knew that you would appreciate this one. As you guys know, this is a time to get all your questions into chat for our Q&A. It is going to be a little shorter today, so you better make them count. But here is the launch trailer for No Man's Sky Beyond. I think I've said it before, but I think that game is now what I thought it was going to be all along.
I think it's beyond.
It is beyond actually now. Yeah, I mean, there's 32.
I mean, that's what it's called. So like,
right.
Beyond.
Yeah. There is 32 concurrent people that can play together now.
I think that's like the co-op quest stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, man.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care about that because like I don't care about the multiplayer in this game.
Yeah.
The VR is a nice trick, but I don't know how much I'll use it. I'll probably try it on PSVR and say, "Oh, that's cool," and then like that's it. More interested in the kind of the weird tweaks they've made and like the procedural changes, the biome changes, the riding creatures. I don't know how into milking creatures I am, but I guess it's just part of the new base building.
It's an acquired taste.
Yeah, if Luke Skywalker can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like, I'm glad they're still supporting it. I played a lot of the next update a year ago, and I will probably play a lot of this.
And you probably heard, we didn't take the mics down, but neither one of us have got to play it.
No, it's not.
Because it doesn't come out
till
tomorrow. Yeah. So it's not available today. It's tomorrow. Not a typical Tuesday release. Let's get to some questions. We are running out of time. W. Matthew, with the ESA mishandling press and YouTubers' data, do you think Microsoft and Nintendo might use that as an excuse to dip from E3, meaning leave E3? Microsoft is barely there as is. No.
Probably not.
No. They don't care.
No. They don't care unless it happens to them.
They don't care about us. As long as we show up, that's all they care about. Like, if we did some kind of a boycott where we're like, the press isn't going to E3 unless Sony does something, Sony would still go.
Yeah.
So they would still ignore. They wouldn't care.
Also, if like you do that, all it takes is one outlet deciding to break the boycott, and they get all the E3 coverage.
Yep.
No one's going to let them happen. It's not going to happen.
Never going to happen. Yeah, they just don't care about us. But we've known that for a long time. Jerry Vic 7, in hindsight, would Google Stadia have had a much stronger initial sell? Well, I mean, it's not really selling yet.
No, it's not out yet.
And messaging, if Google would have waited to announce it until it had exclusive games to pair with it. It does have exclusive games.
It does, just no one cares about them.
They're just not great.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the case with Google Stadia. It's going to get exclusive games, but they're all going to be like B-level indie stuff.
Stuff that they make in-house.
Yeah, I mean, no big studio is going to be like, sure, we'll give it to Stadia first. No. That's not going to happen. And I think, Phil Harrison runs Google Stadia. He knows that better than anyone, the power of places like PlayStation and Microsoft. So,
and I fervently believe that because this is where like I thought of it and finally like the Stadia thing made sense to me. It's for China.
Yeah.
They're trying to break into the Chinese market because that is huge, and it's an untapped market. Everything they get in North America and Europe is bonus points.
Yep. Justin Horman, thank you for subscribing with Twitch Prime. Also, thank you for using the emoji of my head. Usually everybody uses PAX, but you actually busted out my head in the chat, so thank you. And thank you for the subscribe. Like 26 months in a row, man. Thank you. That's awesome. Super Cordon Blue. I just want to say how great the show was. Keep up the great work. Thank you. The one Geo, if you were given $1 million to start a new company, what kind of company would you create? This one, except it would be successful because I had plenty of money to make it successful. You need so much money to start a website and make it successful.
Yeah, $1 million isn't really anything.
That isn't even enough. Like, I often think about, like, what if I won the lottery? Like, how much, say I won, like, $500 million. Like, how much of it would it really take to make Sifted what it really deserves to be? And it's like $250 million, really.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. But that's the kind of money you need to launch a commercial website and have it be successful and actually get eyeballs to it. Like, I was so naive when I launched Sifted. I was like, oh, I have all these fans that watch Invisible Walls every week. I've been away for a couple years, but they'll remember me. Pfft, I was yesterday's news. Probably 3 months after I left Game Trailers, I was yesterday's news. So, yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of money to launch a successful website, and that's one lesson I've learned the hard way over the last few years. What would you do?
I would just use it for film production.
Yeah.
Like a production company. Again, it would be not like you could barely make half a movie for that money.
Yeah.
But,
or you could make a really good indie film.
Yeah,
with like big time actors.
Not really. Not for $1 million.
Oh, for $1 million, yeah. Yeah, $1 million's nothing, man. I hate to say it, but it's really not.
I mean, $250 million, we make a few.
That's what I was talking about. Like,
no, with $1 million, that's a.
You wouldn't have any big.
You're making a Blumhouse movie.
Oh
at that
yeah.
point.
That's nothing to make a film.
No.
I mean, it's really nothing to make a game either. It'd be hard to make an indie game with $1 million.
And if you want to like compete in like the Hyperlight Drifter sort of area, like the top like Hollow Knight area of indie games, yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't even make it for that.
No.
Yeah. $1 million isn't what it used to be. When I was a kid, someone was a millionaire. They were filthy rich. Like, they weren't just, like, well-to-do, or they were rich.
Well, you still are, depending on where you are in the country.
$1 million isn't that much, man. No matter where you are anymore, really.
If you invest right, you can live off that, probably, if you're in, like, rural Montana.
That's true.
I mean, it depends what the cost of living is.
Yeah.
I mean, also, you get distorted by how much things cost here. Like, go out to the Midwest where you can like just sit down at a restaurant and get like a meal for like a lunch for two for $12.50, which is like what it would cost for one sandwich here.
Yeah.
Like tipping in the Midwest is weird because I'm just like I feel like I'm stiffing you. Like because 20% of the bill there is nothing.
Well, when the bill's like $5.
Yeah.
And you don't want to know what? People who live in those areas still won't tip 20%.
Yeah.
They'll literally put like a quarter down for a tip.
Ugh.
It's gross. Ed Rock the Truth. If that's a playoff of Ad Rock from Beastie Boys, mad props. If Konami is more concerned about making pachinko machines, then why are they still making Pro Evolution Soccer? Are they making that much of a profit, even with FIFA being more popular? I think it's because they are making money on it.
Yeah.
Period. And they already have the team there. They already have the processes in place. It's an annual franchise.
Yeah. It's just a treadmill that produces money once a year.
There's no stress. Yeah. It's not Kojima. They're not worried about, oh my God, is he going to come to us and delay this game for like the 8th time after he burned through another $100 million?
It's a dependable source of revenue every year.
It's a fixed cost with fixed revenue. Yeah. And most companies will take that all day, every day.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to.
Because like Konami, the one thing about Konami, even in the era of the pachinko, they do not seem to have bought into the delusion of infinite growth. Like they're looking for a way that they can be profitable on a regular and consistent basis, pay off for the shareholders, and stay what they are. And that's pretty much what they're succeeding at doing. Smart. I mean, I don't like it because I don't get to play all these games I like anymore. Hell, just give me a Suikoden collection like at this point. But they're making money. They're doing well. They're in the best financial shape they've been in for like 15 years.
Yeah, and it's gonna stay that way.
Yeah.
All right. Before we go, we have a word from our sponsor. Let's roll it. Feeling the urge to get away from it all, permanently or for months at a time? Immerse yourself in the best Montana has to offer on 320 acres of remote, heavily forested property. Gaze at your own private lake from the deck of the log cabin. Truly off the grid, soak in a custom wood fire heated hot tub surrounded by wilderness and wildlife. Visit www.lostlakemontana.com for more detailed information and images. You can also contact Doug DeShazer today at deshazermt@gmail.com or 406-291-1643. That's deshazermt@gmail.com or 406-291-1643. Thanks again to our sponsor for making all this possible. Before we go, just a couple things. I know a lot of you guys probably jumped in the middle of the show, and I had some announcements at the top of the show. I'm going to reiterate right now. A lot of the site improvements are happening right now. Brent's working on them. The first round is going to be under the hood stuff. You might not notice, but some other people will notice. And I wish I could see their faces when they do realize some of the changes we're making. Our Fantasy Football League, this is the last call. If any of you guys want to join our Fantasy Football League, and again, it is fantasy football, it's not fantasy video games. This is the last call. Get in touch with me on Twitter or on the site at Shane. And don't forget today's high score every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific. It's our call-in show. There's no other video game show like it in the world. And the last 2 episodes have been amazing. This last week's episode, we're not afraid to touch on some pretty challenging topics. We talked about games and guns, and everybody was really respectful, and the calls were great. We had people on both sides. So if you're interested in just watching or being a part of the show, every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Next week, we should have some games to talk about, probably. We're definitely going to give you guys the recap of everything that happened at Gamescom because, let's be honest, by the time Tuesday rolls around, all the big stories from Gamescom will be out.
Yeah.
The show will still be going on, and you can look for our Gamescom hub for that stuff, but all the big stories will have been broken by then, and we'll talk about them then. So everybody, have a great week. We'll see you next week. GameFace is up and out.